next item up is approval of minutes of the June 27 meeting. Are we in a position to approve the minutes?
Ed had a very minor edit, just to correct something that he had said that wasn't correctly,
Okay.
and it was one line.
It was Dawn's first minutes that she did, and she did a terrific job.
Did a good job.
Very thorough.
Very
Yeah,
detailed.
excellent job. So, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the June 27th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? That is 600. All right, item 4A is next, and that's a request for certificate of compliance at 124 Lexington Street for Basha Patel. Someone here for that? Please step up to the chair. Good evening. So welcome to the Conservation Commission. And you, for the record, you state your name, where you live, and what you're here for.
Alpesh Patel, 124 Lexington Street.
Okay, and you're here for a certificate of compliance.
Correct.
So the project is finished?
Yes.
All tucked in?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, do we have any comments on this certificate of compliance?
So actually, you heard this certificate of compliance a couple of months ago, maybe, and the issues were, the site issues were fine. There was one condition in the order requiring that the rear of the property beyond the fence be restricted in perpetuity for protection, partly because it's all floodplain. And subsequent to that, the applicant has worked with a lawyer and did a deed restriction and recorded it at the Registry of Deeds to meet the condition.
Okay, so everything is in order then?
Correct.
Very good. In that case, would you like to say anything at all? No need? Okay, everything looks
She
good.
just came in, so.
Okay, good evening. So can I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 124 Lexington Street, DEP 122555?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? That is 600. You're all set. Thank you very much.
It's actually a bond.
Oh, is there a bond? I'm sorry. Yes, you want your bond back. So can I have a motion to release the bond
$5,000.
for $5,000 for that same location, 124 Lexington Street, DEP 122555?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, now we're officially done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item 4B, request for certificate of compliance, 50 Margaret Street, Speedwagon Partners for an erosion and sedimentation control permit. Is someone here for that? That is not required that somebody be here for that. We should be able to handle it without them being here. Do we have any comments or any issues?
No, we actually, I inspected this site. As you recall, you may recall that you issued a cease and desist for work that had begun on this site back in 2017. They subsequently came in and got an erosion control permit for disturbing about 84,000 square feet. So it's a very big property and a pretty big disturbance. I visited the site periodically. I visited earlier this year and issued their certificate of occupancy, and a few of us went to see it yesterday, and I sent around just a couple of pictures just to show that it's perfectly stabilized. It's as expected. I have no issues.
Okay. Anybody else have anything from those who went that they want to bring up? It certainly looked like it was well stabilized and completed. Okay, so may I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 50 Margaret Street for the erosion and sedimentation control permit?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? That's 600 also.
And there's also a $5,000 bond on that one.
Okay. May I have a motion to release the $5,000 bond for 50 Margaret Street?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Okay, that one is complete. Next on the agenda is item 4C, 5 Burlington Mall Road from Burlington S&S LLC for request for certificate of compliance. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jocelyn Mayer from VHB. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Simon Property Group, requesting a certificate of compliance for the village project at the Burlington Mall. I understand you guys had your site walk yesterday, I believe, and there were a few issues that you guys aren't totally satisfied with the condition of the site, and I understand you're probably not comfortable issuing a certificate of compliance this evening. I spoke with John earlier today, and he let me know of the concerns with the hydro seeding, the litter and concrete washout. I'm not sure if there's anything else. But with that being said, Simon has a tenant that is looking to occupy one of the spaces August 8th, and ultimately they're looking for a certificate of occupancy for that space. So I guess if it was reasonable to you and John was comfortable, the ask really is that he's able to sign off on the certificate of occupancy. And then I can come back once we're all in agreement that the site is in tip-top shape and we can close out the certificate of compliance.
That certainly sounds reasonable. John, comments on that?
We do that frequently, especially, we typically do temporary occupancy permits, but, and that's, as long as they can open with that, that's what I'd recommend doing, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Any comments from the people who visited the items that she mentioned? Is that all that was needed? The stability of the landscaping and...
I just have a couple of questions, and I honestly not sure I was here when, it's maybe, water under the bridge kind of thing, when it was actually approved. Was the O&M plan approved? Did you have the copy of like the, long-term pollution prevention plan and so forth when it was approved?
I think it was
You
in the
did?
NOI,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
As part of the
Yep,
stormwater.
yeah, that's fine. So the only thing that, just to kind of maybe counsel the owner that, when I read through it, that it just seems like there are some things in terms of, that's going to be a site where there's going to be potential for lots of trash, because there's a lot of food places, people in and out, that, there's kind of really vague mention in the pollution prevention plan about trash pickup, like, it will be done frequently. It may be nice to be done every day to check that parking lot, and to weekly to go down, to, go into the drainage area and stuff like that, because stuff kind of collect there from the road and things like that. And I don't know if they're willing to do this, but that fencing that's along where the resource area is and the drainage, that split rail, that maybe at the bottom half, putting like a mesh fence or something to prevent stuff from blowing down in there, because I know there's going to be a lot of people getting in their cars, throwing out their coffee cup and whatever else, that it just would be kind of an added prevention. I mean, they don't have to do it, obviously, but it just walking around.
You're referring to the fence at the dumpster?
No, the one
No.
around the
Guardrail.
the guardrail.
Guardrail
The
itself.
guardrail,
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I'll certainly pass it along.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And again, they had every intention of having the site complete
Yep.
for your site walk, but they just had several weather delays. Paving kept getting pushed, which pushed the guardrail installation, which is why the site wasn't completely hydro-seeded, so I apologize on.
So hydro seed is planned?
And I mean,
Yes, yes.
you probably mentioned the battery.
I didn't actually mention that, but there's an old, like, discarded battery out.
Sears.
Like a Sears battery, just lying there on the grass, very close to Burlington Mall Road.
Okay.
But I think that would be seen on the next round.
The last remnant of the old building. I hope. Okay, anything else on that issue? So we are going to make a motion to issue a temporary occupancy permit. Is that correct?
You don't need to make that motion. I mean, I typically would do that. As long as you don't have any objections, I would
Okay,
just
so-
do that as a matter of
All right,
course,
so if there's
generally.
no objections, then we'll let John take care of that. Very good. Okay, yeah, I see no
Appreciate it.
problem with
Thank
the
you.
occupancy. You're welcome.
Oh, just logistically, now, do you want us to carry this over to the next agenda, which is August 8th?
It's August 8th,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that the site will probably be ready by then, but I know the landscaping bond will still probably be held for 1 to 2 growing seasons.
Right,
But we can close out, we can get the certificate of compliance and then just hold the bond.
right.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll continue this to the August 8th meeting.
Okay.
We're actually early for the minor engineering to the letter.
That's one thing.
All right, so next item, we cannot start for 5 minutes because it's scheduled for 7:15. So we'll go to the item 10 and just jump ahead to see if there's any administrative planning board comments.
Planning board comments? No.
No, nothing happening there. Any subcommittee staff reports or updates? Not much happening in that area, I don't
Well, I
think.
can give you the update on the open space and recreation
Yes.
plan. So the open space and recreation plan has officially been approved. So we now have a plan through October 2026, I think it is, something like that.
2026,
Yeah.
okay.
So, great job by everybody. We had a committee, some of the commission members were on the committee. It's great.
Made the front page of the Burlington Times Chronicle, right? That's their feature story one day. It's very good. Okay, upcoming meetings, we only have one meeting in August and one meeting in this month of July, so the next meeting is August 8th, and the one after that is September 12th, and we return to a month at that point.
Do you want to go to item number 11 now?
To number 11, that's right.
So number 5 isn't a public hearing, so if you started a few minutes early,
Okay.
it's not a hearing, so.
All right, then we'll do that. So item number 5 is a request for minor engineering change for 141 to 151 South Bedford Street, Northeastern University. Site layout changes, DEP 122605. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Marr. I'm a senior project manager with Niche Engineering, and I am before you for the proposed site changes since we received approval last year for the new building at the Northeastern University campus.
Okay.
Located on South Bedford Street. So I'm not sure where you want me to begin, or
Tell us what those changes are and why they should qualify as a minor engineering change.
Sure. Well, we have submitted, documentation to the planning board, the same documentation that was submitted to the Conservation Commission and that was approved, last month. We, and some of the changes, that have occurred, number one, previously the town of Burlington had requested us to bring a water line down South Bedford Street and for a new water line connection to
Yes.
increase the capacity. After they did some, study and some reviews, they found that, we needed to go an alternate route in which we went down a sewer utility easement between South Bedford Street and Cambridge Street and connected the two dead ends for a loop system, and we're feeding off of that. That work did come before the commission last year under a separate NOI filing from this building.
Okay.
The second is that there was a study done, it was requested from the Board of Health last year of the existing bunkers, which are located at this location here, highlighted in the dash lines and this location. So, based on the study that was done by a structural engineer, it was determined that they're somewhat deficient in capacity. They can't even structurally hold a fire department truck from driving over it. So, we gave some, consideration as to, what to do. So we are proposing to basically cordon off this area here so that no vehicles, do, drive, over it. We're going to put in a wood fence, guardrail, along with some, fencing, kind of grassy area up a little bit, and then just leave it in its natural state.
Okay.
This location here, as you can see from this plan, we previously had a driveway with for drop-off and handicap parking spots in front, and a portion of the driveway and the parking spots was sitting right over the southerly bunker here. So as part of the design change for that, before much of this was all impervious area with the driveway and so forth. So what we've done is we've shifted the parking up alongside the existing row of parking. Notice there, we've kind of pushed the curb to this location for handicap parking and for access to the front of the building. We have also created some walkways for passive walkers who want to walk the campus and so forth, for access to the building as well as throughout the campus, and our spider web of walkways that we have entertained the planning board at their request to basically make everything connected. So as you see, the bunker is underneath an area of pervious material, will be grass, some trees, probably some boulders, just to keep vehicles from driving over that area there. We have the central walkway. We have talked with the fire department. Not only do they have access from the back of the building, but if they needed to, they could drive up here without fear of settling any portion of the walkway or from their outriggers, that they install. Should something occur at the building there, there would be no fault in that.
Okay.
We are, I don't have the calculation off the top of my head, but we are reducing the impervious area by 2,000 to 3,000 square feet from what was previously.
Oh, good.
And I would like to say that all of this work is outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
So
As well.
you reduced it, 2,000 square feet impervious area? Did you reduce it, or?
I'm sorry?
I said, did you reduce the impervious area? Or?
Yes. From what we had before with the parking areas, the driveway, and so forth. So we've kind of condensed things, and we really, in working with the planning department, really want to make this more of a green space. As you're looking at the front of the building. So we've got some planted areas here. Some little mounds to hide some of the extra soil that we've got on the site there, just to create a little. Visual effects for the building there.
So I was just going to ask, so in the area in the parking that you have to cordon off and make it a green space, is any, could you plant a tree there? And some of these other green spaces, rather than just grass, or is it possible to plant trees, or is it too shallow?
No, that is our plan, to plant some trees.
So
Over the bunker?
Over the bunker.
Over the bunker, you're going to plant a tree?
how deep is the soil?
No, on the sides.
Oh, okay.
On the sides, okay. But you could plant other stuff that's shallow rooted besides just grass.
Correct.
Because that would be beneficial. I think whatever you're planting, if you could just submit the planting plan before you plant it to John to make sure that, there's, so that's what we have, this is your planting plan?
Right.
Okay.
You have all these things, so this plan does show the trees
Yep.
that are proposed
Okay.
in this area that weren't there before.
Is the property, and so is the property fenced off? The only reason why I asked that, I saw that you were planting 25 arborvitae and right next to Mary Cummings. Those could be totally mowed down by the deer.
Well, the area for our work for this building, part of the campus is cordoned off while they're doing this work.
No, but I'm talking about after it's done, deer grazing on your trees that they love, especially arborvitaes.
Well, I know that we're going to replace some of the fencing that's along.
Is it 6 feet high?
Yes.
Okay.
It matches what's there now.
All right, maybe you're lucky.
Trustees will probably allow hunting.
Huh?
Trustees will probably allow hunting.
Yeah. And there's increase, so, because I had read there was increased parking and an increased dumpster pad, and there's walkways now, and that all still contributes to a decrease in
Yes.
impervious? Okay.
Yes.
So did any stormwater structures have to be relocated?
No. Nope. We were very cognizant, of their location, their elevation and so forth, so we made sure that whatever we did for design, didn't require any relocation of, utility structures. But, pretty much all the utility structures are in, as of this point. There might be a couple that, we put in, and we just need to bring to finished grade, but, with some frames and covers and some risers, but, 98% of the utility structures are in.
So I assume this is coming in for a certificate of compliance in the foreseeable future, or
Correct.
what's the timing on that?
It'll be, sometime, 3 to 4 months.
Well, while we have you here, can we ask a question about the water line? What's the status of the stabilization of the water line project?
It's, they've kind of let it just grow by itself. So pretty much, most of it is, does have grass growing. I actually went to the site, before because there are some things that the contractor needs to take care of. Whether they were there or not. We found some fence posts with, concrete, attachments, to them. That might have been old from the ball field, but, they've kind of thrown it off to the side. They've got some hay bales strewn about, some, silt fence and things of that nature. So, I'm going to do a detailed report for the contractor. So, he needs to make those repairs. And, but, to be honest with you, John, some of it, we don't want him to really do because we want him to repair or clean out that culvert that crosses under South Bedford Street. First, because some of that material does go into that first stream off of South Bedford Street. So we want to be able to capture all of that without impacting anything, more downstream. So we're just waiting for him to do that work.
And were there other changes? There's a couple more mentioned on the paperwork here. One, the trash compactor was...
Right, was increased, they had gone with a specific size, but now that they're going, full board on it between, recycling, trash, and others, they had to enlarge the pad size to accommodate, those. We've also have, at the access drive, we're doing some lane configurations at the request of the planning board, and at, Blanchard Road for some sign markings and signage improvements at those locations. We had also, part of the order of conditions too, or, part of our submittal was for the storm drain outfall in back of the property at the, to the Mary Cummings property. Part of this, the order of conditions was about cleaning out that area. There's a drainage channel at the end there. We walked the site with John and Kristen back in May, and it was determined at that time just to leave it as is, rather than do a whole lot of disturbance, to that area.
Okay.
Just kind of leave that vegetated, state as is, rather than, a machine gets in there, he's going to disturb a whole lot more than what we really need to do. And right now, everything seems to be, flowing, pretty well, and there's no obstructions with anything in that channel would tend to waver the swale of water that runs through there.
So to that point, part of the problem is that the stormwater was coming down and washing across trails, and it was causing a mess. But subsequent to that, the trustees have put in some boardwalks in that area on the trails, so it's not really a problem anymore. So the water just basically goes under the little boardwalk, and so the trail erosion is no longer an issue.
Okay.
And then one of the other conditions, probably one of the last ones, previously this was the access point to get out to Mary Cummings Park, and that was the access point also too for the town of Woburn to get to their water tower. Because we are closing this off, we have we are relocating that. Sorry. We are relocating that access over by the existing BCC building, or the old barracks building. There's a driveway right next to the building, so our intent is to extend that driveway up to the property line. So, paving it, there's a riprap swale out and back there, and so what we're going to do is remove some of that riprap, put in a box culvert so that water can still flow freely behind the building and from off the property, come through the trench here, the riprap trench, on the side of the driveway, and the city road as it currently does. And then once it gets to the property line, then the town of Woburn is going to take over as far as clearing what they need to, and they've been working with trustees as well too for what they need to do to gain access to that water tower.
Okay.
So we actually had a meeting out there with Jay Corey and others last month and in May, along with the trustees to go over the route and what's needed and so forth.
So that work just described is in Woburn, not in Burlington.
Right. Okay. Is the trailhead access open to the public in this location, or will it not be?
Well, it will be. We're providing some parking and so
Will be.
forth.
Good.
That is there now. Where, as I said earlier, we're integrating all the buildings with a walkway. Some of the area does have an existing walkway, but some of it we are improving, to better connect those walkways to each other so that there's a safe path of travel throughout the campus.
But that's for employees and people who are permitted there, but for the other citizens, can we go up there and go in that trail? We will be able to,
Yes.
good, because that was a good point. Okay. Any other comments from the board here, from the commissioners? John and Eileen, does this seem to qualify as a minor engineering change, in your opinion?
Yes, the work is outside the buffer zone, and it's a reduction in impervious area.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve the requested changes as a minor engineering change for the Northeastern University project, DEP file number 122-605.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? 700. You are all set, sir. Thank you, Mr. Maher.
Okay. Next on the agenda is item 6. Notice is given. The commission will hold a public hearing to take information related to a notice of intent filed by Michael and Brenda McCarthy. This is for the construction of an addition to a single-family dwelling at 46 Westwood Street in Burlington. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, in Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The commission will be reviewing information and decide whether to issue an order of conditions. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. So please introduce yourselves and who you're with or where you live, and then you can talk for as little as long as you'd like.
I'm a land use environmental consultant. My name is Marcus Pinney. My residence is in Lexington, and I'm a sole proprietor. I have the luxury of a home office after a career in wetland and land protection, and I'm here representing the owner, Michael McCarthy.
I'm Michael McCarthy. I live at 46 Westwood Street. I've lived there for the last 37 years, my wife and I. We've been living in Burlington, raising 2 sons. And this was basically the first home we ever bought. And the project that we are planning and hoping to get approved is one that will ensure that it's the last home that we ever buy. So I've been active in the community in Burlington here through sports and the recreation department. Larry, you may remember when I was running the basketball program and you coached. That was quite a while ago, but at any rate, we love Burlington. We want to make sure we can stay, and this will help us. What we are planning here is a first floor bedroom, because we have a cape and the bedrooms are on the 2nd floor. So, as my wife and I are getting older, we'd like to not have to go up and down the stairs. And we also want to have add a family room to the house where we can have family gatherings so that my sons and their wives and our grandkids can come for holiday gatherings.
Sounds like a good plan. Okay, John, any comments on the resource area? Or Eileen?
So Marcus Pinney was engaged to look at the wetland situation out there. He found wetland plants in the sort of wooded area, and he had to look at the hydrology in the lawn area, and he determined that the wetland extends into the lawn quite close to the above ground pool. There's also an outfall sort of at the back right of the property. The above ground pool is about 6 feet only from the line of the wetland line, and the existing house is 38 feet. And they are proposing to build 2 additions at the sort of eastern and northeastern side of the house, which would bring the house as close as 17 feet to the wetland line.
Okay.
And the pool is being removed.
All right. Do you have any concerns?
Well, it's significantly closer because generally you don't consider a pool to be a structure because it doesn't require a building permit. An above-ground pool, I mean, sorry.
We, if I may, we did obtain a building permit
Sorry.
to install that pool at the time. That was in the 1980s, but yes.
Sorry about that. I misspoke. Also, to be fair, some of the wetland is in what is existing lawn. 4 or 5 feet is in what is currently maintained as lawn.
Right, right.
The hydrology there is interesting with respect to the changes. They've put more water into that outfall since Michael moved in over the years, and he's observed changes in the tree and the soils in the lawn. I think from the augering and the digging that I did, clearly this is a kind of ongoing change from basically the street drainage that's kind of, episodically flooding that area. And I would note that while the proposed house is closer, we are removing the pool and the driveway. We're reducing the impervious surface on the lot. And in fact, in terms of structures that are close to the wetland, we're actually increasing the offset from 6 feet to 17 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you for that summary. Okay, so let's see if the board has any questions or comments. Indra, anything on this one?
Well, I have concern because it's above ground pool is not considered as a structure, is it?
Yes.
Oh, so you say there is an improvement from 6 feet to 17 feet?
I would say.
Yes.
It is? Okay.
Yes, there is a change from 6 feet to 17 feet, yes.
Okay.
I know it's a change, it's an improvement.
Between 6 and 17, yes, I suppose, yes. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Gail, anything on this?
So, I don't know if like in the design of your addition for like that part off the side, that's the family room, whether, if you brought it back 3 feet so that it wouldn't be within our no-build zone and made it a little bit longer, if that's a possibility or not, just something to consider there. I think also I'd like to see in the area of the lawn that's the wetland that's been actually mowed, that's part lawn now. I think we would want to see that revegetated to be allowed to grow naturally.
What I can tell you is that that's been lawn since I moved in here.
Sure.
And it's been lawn for 50 years.
And that's fine, but that would be an improvement, though, to, in terms of the functioning of the wetland, if you let it, return to natural vegetative land. And then I think we also saw some dumping of landscape waste along the, was it near where this driveway?
The driveway needs to be removed.
Yeah, so that we want pulled out and stop that.
What that is trees that had
I think there were some leaves and things like that. So adjacent to the where the driveway is that you're going to pull out. Yeah.
All right, Bill, anything?
Well, I mean, you're in the design stage here. What was prohibiting you from putting the additions on the other side of the house,
There's a garage
Garage
there.
at the living space and put a garage somewhere else?
It would cost a lot more money. I'd have to get rid of the garage. And the breezeway, the way it's set up, it would be quite a bit more expensive.
So you did look at that, but it was...
Yeah, I could say, I mean, that would, for me, ideally, the garage would have been built on the other side of the house and would be there now where I'm looking to put the addition, and then I could put that on that side, but that's the way the house was built.
I just wanted to make sure you had considered that and ruled it out for a reasonable reason, because that would eliminate all the problems with trying to clear space from the resource areas. It's a beautifully wooded lot in the back, and it's really a lovely lot with some healthy, mature hardwood trees and stuff. So, do you have any plans in this project to do any major tree cutting at all?
No, not at all. I don't plan. I want to try to save the dogwood, which is an ornamental tree that's in front of where the addition, the bedroom, and that is on the side, the bedroom. That would be the bedroom addition. I'm hoping to be able to save that there. It's a nice tree. But beyond that, there isn't a reason to cut anything else down.
Some people cut them with no good reasons, because they don't like trees, so I'm glad to hear you're not of that
if you were there, my wife told me that some of you had stopped by
there,
yesterday, and you'll probably notice that one of the trees, I have this swamp maple that's in the back there, just on the other side of the pool, and one of the tree, it grew in three, and one of them came down last year in a storm. You know, that's, we've had some other trees come down in that area back there too, and it's been kind of up to me to go out there and clean that stream on a periodic basis, because if I don't, I get flooding. So I, try to keep that stream from the outfall, because it eventually there's a little streamlet or rivulet or whatever you would want to call it. It eventually wends its way through the back of that conservation area and joins up with the stream that's in the back on the other side, which then goes into the Ipswich River. So, yeah, I keep that clear, because if I don't, then the water table rises really high, and I get flooding in my crawl space.
Okay, let's go to the right. Jennifer, anything further? Ed, anything further?
Covered there.
Okay, John?
I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah, my only reaction to this was that there seems to be a benefit removing the pool. That there's a benefit to removing the bituminous concrete on the right-hand side, the old driveway, that's a benefit. And I think it would be good, especially at least, if you would commit to areas where the lawn is marked as wetland, if you could let that revegetate.
Okay, and what do you mean by that specifically?
It's where this gentleman, he can...
Well, I think in this case, because of the seed stock and what I see there now, I think just if he stops mowing, it will
Ferns and,
nicely as
maple saplings, things like that.
Wooded wetland.
Yeah, essentially,
shrub wetland.
This gentleman documented that it was part of the wetland a little bit into where the grass is, and it would be good if we could just restore that area, would be my reaction. John, do you have any comments on this?
No, not beyond what's been discussed. What was the plan for the driveway removal? Not just grass, right?
We were proposing to make that lawn. That would probably compensate Michael for the loss of the lawn.
111, so yeah, it slopes that way. We're just discussing the rooftop runoff. Are you going to just have the rooftop runoff go down spouts and onto the lawn? Is that the idea?
That's what we have now. I don't know.
You're going to do the same with the new addition?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I mean, I didn't, to be honest with you, I hadn't thought of it at all.
Well, it turns out that property looks like it slopes backwards anyway, so it's not going to be coming out to the street, which would be our concern. Right. So as long as it's going back into the property and going into the earth, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, well, that's...
And if there's wetlands within the lawn, there's probably a high water table, and you wouldn't be able to put an infiltrator or a dry well in there.
Right. Okay, so is there anyone in the audience for this at 40, what's the address?
46.
46 Westwood Street. Nope. All right, so we have, do we have a draft decision at this point? No?
This just
This is
opened.
the first hearing.
All right, so
We need a waiver, though. We need a waiver because he's actually, it's disturbed.
we will do that at the next,
That'll be the next meeting?
at the next meeting. Did anyone hear anything these folks need to do between now and the next meeting? So it sounded like you're all set. We will have a draft decision prepared for you at the next meeting, and we'll just review it with you, make sure you understand, and we'll take a vote, and you'll be on your way for the project.
Would a draft be
Should-
ready before the meeting for Michael and I to look at?
Yeah, can we get a draft to them ahead of time?
We can.
We
They're-
can.
They're going to be also within 20 feet.
What's that?
They're going to be within 20 feet of the wetland with this proposal.
Yeah, Larry, should, should there be some consideration before we, to review whether we accept the waiver or not, whether that addition to the side can be made more long rather than fat to give us 3 more feet? Just something to consider, to look at, whether there's a change in design.
We can have a brief discussion on that if you would like.
Well, I think if we're asking for a waiver, I think, we should be rigorous in terms of looking at every alternative before we grant a waiver. Otherwise,
That
why
would
have a
pull the
waiver? Why have
construction-
that, as a bylaw?
So find a way to pull the construction out of the
Yeah,
20-foot no
yeah,
disturb.
just to, just kind of look at the plan and see if there's a way that that piece that comes out can be shaped a little bit differently, maybe going deeper to the back rather than widthwise to give us that 3 feet.
So the 20, if it were at 20 feet, it would be okay.
It would be okay, it'd be no problem, we wouldn't need a waiver, right?
I think I can make that change.
Well, that would be good to look at, that would be great,
And you can go further back if you want.
yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I was first laying it out as to what I thought we would need there, it was close, I have it now at 24, and I had it originally at closer to 21, and it was then 24, but I just was trying to figure out see what the envelope would be,
It's just a small corner
Yeah.
of the structure.
Right, that'd be awesome.
So I think there's some things I can do to shift it.
Sure.
And so that it falls within those parameters.
That would be great.
When would you need the revised plan in order to continue with the process so we could have a draft decision at the next meeting?
So we actually have 5 weeks between meetings.
Weeks?
Yeah, we don't have another
Time.
meeting till August 8th, so if you could get it within a couple of weeks, that'd be good.
Sure.
Okay. All right, then a waiver would not be required.
Right.
Is the point. Okay, so we'll see you on August 8th, looks like. Okay, we'll review the decision and vote and close it out at that time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm not getting it, I'll look at yours. It was on a space coupon.
Okay, we're in a public hearing, item 7 on the agenda. Notice is given. The commission will hold a public hearing during which time we have a notice of intent filed by the town of Burlington for the construction of a sidewalk along Burlington Mall Road from Middlesex Turnpike to the Burlington Mall in Burlington. The proposed work would be within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands pursuant to the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and it is within riverfront area pursuant to Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The commission will be taking information related to the application and may issue an order of conditions. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review. Good evening.
Evening. Good evening. I will start for the town of Burlington. It's interesting sitting on this side.
Interesting seeing you on this side.
I know. Anyway, Kristen Kasner, Planning Director for the town of Burlington. Here with Jocelyn Mayer from VHB. So just wanted to give a little bit of backup and history of this sidewalk and the plans that you have in front of you and how we got here. So as all of you are aware, we permitted a site plan for the Burlington Mall for the work that's currently ongoing for the TBA site as well as the first level of Sears. As part of the negotiations with the planning board, in that approval, there was a request from the planning board to connect the sidewalk piece, the long-awaiting piece of sidewalk from the TBA Drive or the Sears Drive up to Middlesex Turnpike. As many of you are aware, sidewalks have been a real priority for the planning board as well as for the town to really make the connections. We just, a couple years ago, made the Middlesex Turnpike full connection from Lexington to Bedford under the MassWorks grant. That was tremendous, really piecing together a long-awaited path down that commercial corridor. A priority of the planning board as well as town meeting is to try to connect sidewalks wherever we can, especially in the commercial corridor where we have a high density of populations. And this piece is a critical piece that has been a difficult piece to construct, and since some of it and some of the needs that we had to consider construction required property owner involvement, since it was on the Sears property. Sears, as all of you know, has closed. Simon does control the Sears property, so this was really the first opportunity in decades for us to have a real conversation about creating the sidewalk in this location, allowing for the grading necessary into the site. So there we were. So, you know, the negotiations with Simon were long. It's a difficult sidewalk to build. It's an expensive sidewalk to build, but they did agree to connect the sidewalk as mitigation for the project going on. But there was some discussion about the town being involved in the permitting process, so that's why you see us here. They will need, to construct this, will need conservation approval as well as approval by the Board of Selectmen, and we'll be moving that through that process after, you know, obviously we hear a lot of comments from this board. We have reviewed the plan with the Staff Traffic Advisory Committee over the last month or so. The comments initially, the initial plan didn't have a pedestrian crossing across Middlesex Turnpike. It now does. It didn't have a refuge. It now does. And then just a discussion about most recently the guardrail being it was on the street side. The guardrail is now on the back of sidewalk, and that was critical because the sweeper as well as the snowplow wouldn't have been able to get behind the guardrail to the fence without widening it, which would have had significant more widening on the downslope side. So they have moved the guardrail to the back of sidewalk at this point. And then some of the other questions we had through that process were the questions that I'm sure you guys have, is in terms of what's happening between the sidewalk going down to the wetlands and what are the grading options and retaining wall options. With that, I would turn it over to Jocelyn to describe the plan and the engineering of the plan and the kind of how we got here with the plan and answer some of those questions. The quick other thing that I just wanted to bring up, that we also want to make sure that there's kind of that pleasant pedestrian experience as you're walking, and with the sidewalk, guardrail, fence into the riprap slope. We did want to try, and it's a really, really small area between the guardrail and the fence, but if there was any opportunity for some vegetation at the top of the slope, even if it was just decorative grasses or something to break that concrete feel, and just kind of, it was something that we just wanted to bring up from the town perspective as part of this discussion. Other than that, I'll hand it over. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So as Kristen mentioned, we're proposing a 5-foot wide sidewalk with a guardrail now behind that, and then a chain link fence. The crosswalk across Burlington Mall Road. It's approximately 700 linear feet of new concrete sidewalk that's running from the Sears TBA entrance up into Middlesex Turnpike on the northbound travel lane side. We've graded the sidewalk so that it drains towards Burlington Mall Road, so that all the stormwater runoff is collected by that drainage system. It ultimately discharges to the outfall, which we'll be reconstructing as the head wall will be reconstructing as part of this project as well. We're actually pulling the head wall out of the wetland. Right now it's kind of skewed in the way that the setup is. So we'll be creating actually 35 square feet of additional resource area. Small, but it's something. In terms of just temporary impacts, there'll be some temporary disturbance associated with the construction of the head wall. We will need to regrade the existing slope. Currently out there today, there's about a 3-foot shoulder from the curb to where the slope starts to drop off. And it's a 2-to-1 slope down to the existing wetland. So in order to get in the cross-section that we need with the sidewalk, guardrail, fence, at an accessible slope, we need to regrade that slope. And we're proposing right now a riprap stabilization at 1.5 to 1. And I guess just to walk through how we got to this location. We did look at several alternatives before choosing to develop these plans as proposed. First, we looked at, could we put this along the southbound travel lane? There is an existing 1.5 to 1 slope on that side of the road that grades down to about a 6-foot-high retaining wall. So in order to construct the cross-section that we need, we would need to rebuild that existing wall to increase the height to 10 feet. Just the construction cost alone on that wall is about $200,000 to $250,000 for 700 linear feet of new wall. And then you possibly need tiebacks for that wall, which horizontally tie back in the soil. If not, we're kind of pushing the limits on what a modular wall block system really can do. At that height with live loads, that being that close to the wall, you're really looking at like a 72-inch base block, which is pretty significant. And you're cutting back almost to Burlington Mall Road at that point to construct that. So we then have concerns about impacting the structure of Burlington Mall Road including the infrastructure within that road. Next, we looked at, could we put it in the median? Really not a safe pedestrian condition. I don't think anybody wants that. And then also, we'd be tearing up the beautification project that we just put in as part of our planning board approval. We also looked into, could we possibly eliminate a lane in Burlington Mall Road? With the traffic volumes out here, it really just isn't an option. We need the 2 lanes of traffic. And then we also looked at, could we possibly shrink the lanes? But currently the existing lane widths are about 11 feet. If we tighten those up anymore, we really have safety concerns with that. So that being said, we chose to put the sidewalk on the northbound side of Burlington Mall Road. And with that, we looked at a few other options too with that. We considered putting in a retaining wall to try to minimize the impacts that we would have to the resources. However, there's an existing sewer line. Let me flip the page here. There's an existing sewer line that I've highlighted in red that pretty much runs exactly where you would want to have the retaining wall. And the depth of that sewer line varies from 7 to 14 feet. I do have a figure somewhere too. And we do have concerns about the wall exerting pressure on that sewer line. So ideally, you'd want to drop the footing of that retaining wall to roughly the same elevation of the sewer line, which again, as I said, is about 14 feet deep. So to construct a 10-foot deep footing is a significant cost. Not to mention, at that point, the limits of clearing get quite extensive in order to build that. And then lastly, we also looked at possibly doing an engineered reinforced vegetated slope through here instead of using the riprap. But typically those systems require a geogrid that's fixed back into the soil. And those systems usually for the height that you're trying to retain is the length that it needs to be tied back, which at that point we're getting almost back into the travel lane of Burlington Mall Road. So in order to construct that, we would then have to reconstruct a portion of the travel lane, reconstruct a portion of curb, sidewalk, reset drainage structures. It really is a significant cost at that point. So with that, we feel that this is the best plan that we could come up with to provide a pedestrian connection. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that anyone may have.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the summary. Eileen and John, have some comments?
I don't really have any comments. That was a great summary of the issues. It's obviously a tough site, but I don't have anything to add.
Did you mention putting it, one more alternative, did you mention putting it across the street? Did you talk about that?
Yes.
That was with the retaining wall.
Right. And it's too steep on the other side, is that?
Yeah, currently there's a 1.5 to 1 slope that grades down to a 6-foot retaining wall. We would need to raise that wall another 4 feet, but we're not sure that that wall could sustain the additional loads. So we need to rebuild the wall essentially, and currently the wall's right on the property line. So you need easements, and then again, it's a large wall.
And on the other side, there are only 2 lanes of traffic, but on the side where you want to put the sidewalk, there are 3 lanes, and reducing it to 2 would be an issue?
So it actually, there's 2 main travel lanes, and then it opens up for a left turn lane.
Right.
And that occurs on both sides of the road.
It does, okay. You can't have a straight and left.
And one other thing you said, before we get to just other comments, speaking about alternatives for the moment, you have a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Is that the standard that the town of Burlington is putting in, 5 feet wide?
A minimum of 5 feet, yeah.
Okay, so any new sidewalk is going in at 5 feet. So in front of the old Building 19 site, is that 5 feet wide?
It's a little wider than 5 feet, right
Yeah,
there.
but it's greater than 5 feet. Okay. So reducing it down is not an option in this case.
The standard has been 5. When you have less than 5, it's usually to get around obstacles. It's, if you watch people walk next to each other or push baby carriages, 4 feet gets a little tight. So the standard would, especially for a high-density area like this, would be 5 feet.
Well, the only real question is, does the 1 foot make a difference to the design, so you won't have to rip-wrap the whole thing?
No. We would need, so to do a 3-to-1 slope, we'd basically be doubling the amount of grading that we're doing, which would be well into the wetlands. And that's really the flattest slope, or the steepest slope that we could do, and then also plant it without having it structurally reinforced somehow.
So to the commission, what it seems like is this correctly phrased, that you have decided that there is no other alternative to rip-wrapping the entire slope that goes down into the wetlands?
Well, we've evaluated other alternatives, and the GeoGrid is an alternative. However, the cost implications with installing that is significant.
All right, let's see if the commissioners have any other questions. There's not a lot of wiggle room here for discussion, apparently. Indra?
So you're saying that 4 feet is not an option, the width of the sidewalk? I have seen 4 feet wide sidewalk.
I'm not saying 4 feet's not an option. I'm just saying the standard for new construction's been 5 or more, so.
It is an option.
But it wouldn't affect the rip-wrap.
No, it wouldn't affect the design.
That's true. So you are removing the head walls, right?
We're removing the existing one, but rebuilding it. The 3 outfalls will be integrated into the new retaining wall, head wall system.
So that would decrease the footprint?
What was that?
That will decrease the footprint in the resource area?
We're increasing it because we're pulling the existing head wall out of the wetland.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy idea, and I think I know the answer. But so did you, in all your alternatives, did you consider having the sidewalk from that point come down inside the parking lot along the other edge to Burlington Mall Road? So you come, and rather than coming out to the light, you'd actually come down inside the parking lot along that edge and come out to the roadway that way.
Not quite sure that I'm following.
So we're the Sears TBA, so when you're up on Middlesex, right, and coming down Burlington Mall Road, you'd actually then just turn right into Simon's property that way? Is that possible?
You know where the access road is there?
Yes. I'm not sure because I do not go to the mall, so I don't know what's there.
So this is one of the mall driveways
Right.
right here.
Yep.
There is no sidewalk on Middlesex Turnpike in this location, and it has the same constraints.
So where's the sidewalk that is going to communicate with coming from?
We're proposing to put in. the
Okay, when you get to the
sidewalk here.
end, where do you go?
There's a crosswalk here,
Yeah.
and there's a sidewalk here. Then there's also a crosswalk across this leg of Burlington Mall
So
Road.
it makes so much more sense to have the sidewalk on the other side of the street. It's just, because that's kind of like, and I understand the difficulty with it, but that's kind of in parallel, kind of in sequence with the existing sidewalk. So here people are crossing and then crossing, like they're doing a zigzag kind of thing, right?
Well, you'd have to cross Burlington Mall Road here
Yeah.
and then walk down.
Yeah, but if you're coming from, say, on Middlesex Turnpike, so if you're on Middlesex Turnpike, you have to come down.
So you would either walk down Middlesex Turnpike and cross here,
Yeah.
or you'd cross here and then walk down Burlington Mall Road. So either way, it's still one crossing across the road.
But there's no sidewalk though in front of the mall on Middlesex Turnpike.
Correct, there's no sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk on the other side for the entire length, but not on.
So because I actually saw just yesterday people just crossing wherever. So you think people that say are coming out of the mall are going to cross the street? Probably not. But I know we can't control for people, so I won't. They do their own thing. So I mean that slope, as you know, is pretty steep, and I just really worry that it's kind of really going to change that small wetland space, and maybe think, oh, who cares, it's the whole mall. But when we were there I saw a rabbit and lots of birds were singing, and so it actually has some value in this great oasis of pavement. So it would be nice to maybe think harder about some alternatives, and maybe even have you guys done studies of like looking at pedestrians out there and where they're moving, where they're going back and forth? I mean, do you know what pedestrian flow is like out there?
So for many of you, especially when the movie theater first opened, there was always there's a lot of kind of haphazard crossing. But one of the issues has always been where's the best crossing along Middlesex Turnpike. The two locations that have always been identified in the past and continue to be are Middlesex Turnpike and Wheeler Road in front of Dunkin' Donuts, right in front of the 69 Middlesex Turnpike Dunkin' Donuts, which is fully signalized and can handle, and just recently now has a crossing, and this location of Burlington Mall Road. And that is the reason why, as part of the two MassWorks ago projects, when Keurig went in, you saw the crosswalk being constructed across Middlesex Turnpike that just now goes to like a landing right there. Because we had known always that we want to make a crossing at this location and at this intersection. And then in discussion with the mall in the site plan, it was, well, they hadn't engineered it yet. We said we need to build a sidewalk. And one of the things that they said, well, we don't know which side, we don't know which, and we said, okay, take a look at alternatives and make sure they exhaust the alternatives, which Jocelyn has gone through kind of the investigation of both sides. Neither one have great options. And it's just the kind of conversation of how can we best make this connection. We also talked about what are the grades into the site, can we do an off from the intersection getting into the mall somehow. But then there's also people that aren't going to the mall. They're going to, the Kohl's, or they're going somewhere else. So is an in-mall sidewalk as effective as an on-road? And is there a hybrid? And we had that conversation quite a bit. And we're still having the conversation about the slope and the vegetation. And I think we should still think about ways in which we can add some vegetation, or it is going to be a big difference. But
adding like landscaping that generally occurs around these kind of places does not replace the natural landscaping that's there.
Absolutely, and the feeling of the planning board is just really, how can we make this critical pedestrian connection that really ties what Northwest Park is now to the main retail areas and try to achieve that. And looking at Simon to say, you know, we really need help engineering it and designing it, and hopefully we can make that connection, however it's made, so.
So then, my other question for kind of the Simon properties is that, so there's a lot of parking area in the Burlington Mall. You mean, are there areas that, you know, for whatever kind of amount of vegetation would lose and maybe changes to the wetland, that we could reclaim something somewhere?
We are pretty tight on the parking count right now.
You need to develop some more shuttles and bikes and van pools and stuff. There are way too many vehicles coming into that area.
As part of this project, Simon is preparing what they're calling a pocket park, which will be a nice activated outdoor space.
But not a natural vegetated area.
Not natural, but there'll still be a significant amount of green space.
Well, that's my say.
Yeah, I agree that a sidewalk is needed in that stretch. I mean, when we were there yesterday, a gentleman was walking by carrying belongings and, you know, in the driving lane and imploring with us to get a sidewalk put in. So, I mean, sort of I emphasized why we were there. And so I think that it is important, and as is pointed out here, that, you know, the applicant is requesting relief from the restrictions of the bylaw to proceed with the project as a benefit to public safety, and I think that's a valid statement. I agree with the appearance of just riprap and sidewalk, and, you know, it's going to look some any efforts that you can make to get some vegetation along the top edge, or create a little space, or some little pockets of along the riprap where you could put in a small shrub or something would certainly help to make it appear better, both for the birds and the people.
And shade too.
And some shade and things like that, exactly. I had one question about the culvert in the head wall. You're not planning to make changes to the culvert itself, just to the head wall?
Correct.
Okay, because I'm trying to think if there's any way to improve the culvert to accommodate small animal passage through it and have some stepping stones or something, because it is a way for animals to cross and follow into the larger, you know, resource area on the other side of the road. So oftentimes culverts are made just with a round bottom and water, and walking animals, small ones, can't get through there. So if there was any way to encourage the passage of animals through that culvert, this would be a good time to consider it. And the only other comment I had was catch basins along this area in the street. Are they up to standards, and is there anything that we should be doing with those now that we're aware of? I'm not sure, but it might be a good time to, if they do.
I believe they're just standard catch basins. I don't believe that there's any hoods in them currently.
No, some standard ones are less than 4 foot deep.
I haven't measured the ones out in the right-of-way.
It might be an opportunity while we're doing work in that area to improve if there were any catch basins on that side of the street. That would be, you know, probably butting the new sidewalk. That's all I have.
I don't know.
That's all I have.
Okay, Jen, anything?
I think you guys covered a lot of it. I'm just curious, because I agree that safety is an issue. But have there been any accidents there where people have gotten hit or injured?
There have been car accidents.
I can't point to exact numbers, but there has historically been an issue with the kind of running across the street from the mall, up the drives, across the way. And I think now that we have additional uses across from the movie theater, and we have additional uses down on 3rd Ave, I mean, we're seeing that there's kind of activity across, whether or not, you know, I'm sure there's definitely, it's Middlesex Turnpike, there's definitely some crash on Middlesex Turnpike if random people are crossing it unanticipated locations. It's always a problem. So as I mentioned before, that there's 2 really identified best places to access, because I mean, you have the highway interchange and it's really hard to provide anything there. That these 2 locations, we can do the best we can to formalize crossings at key intersections, especially key intersections that are in between where people are naturally going. So yes, we feel that this section of sidewalk is very much needed.
And then, I guess for John and Eileen, is this a huge negative impact to that area? I'm just thinking risk versus benefit. Like, I understand, you know what I mean, that it's beneficial for the town and it's good, but we're saying, like, it's really dangerous for people. But, I mean, so is destroying wetlands and water filtration, so, you know.
Right, so it's riverfront under the bylaw, and not under the Wetlands Protection Act. And it was actually dry, I think, when we were out there. It looked like the stream was dry yesterday. And it's buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, and the work will be well within the 20-foot no disturb. The limit
There
of
should
work
be
would
some-
probably be very, very close to the edge of the wetlands.
So what's the improvement to the riverfront?
We're adding 35 square feet.
That's not improvement. And so that's like something to think, you know, to consider, okay, are there other areas that, you know, we can improve? That are there areas that as part of mitigation that, you know, that need improvement that we could benefit from this?
Right, so the town is the applicant on this, not Simon. So
Well,
that's just something to keep
yeah.
in mind.
But I do think that the alternatives
Like
analysis
Vine Brook.
was very, very thorough, so that was good to see. Sometimes we get them and they're not, so that was.
All right, Ed?
I think you've got a tremendous task ahead. Being a short-term member as a resident here in Burlington and finally getting the feel for living here versus Lexington. We talk about traffic analysis. Has ever done a pedestrian analysis? Has that ever happened? To see where most of this foot traffic is?
I only laugh because it's hard to do a pedestrian analysis in the randomly crossing, you know.
Like the movie theater is one you mentioned. That's
Yeah.
the one that scares me. all the time.
No, we have had analysis that has tracked pedestrian locations when they've been doing a traffic analysis. We do have analysis that's been done over quite a bit over the past 10 years, actually, between the district and the mall and Keurig and that. And the definite thing we are seeing, especially as more people are living in the commercial areas, which is good because it's really giving more 24-hour vitality, but there are more people out and about. And there are more people using the sidewalks more hours a day than just 9 to 5 workers, which I think is great if you drive around and people are walking around. So where is it going? So when we look at need for sidewalks, we look for density of population and density of population as to who would be walking. We're at a critical place to put sidewalks is not where 3 people live in the boonies, but really where hundreds of people are walking every day. And up and down Mall Road with the district, now so much more things happening at the district, and Leahy Clinic. Leahy Clinic has kind of abandoned their trail, their kind of fitness trail they used to have, so now you're seeing more people kind of walking up and down.
They just
fitness trail back.
They
back? Oh, they put it back.
Yeah, restored it actually.
Oh wait, because that was our condition. Well, I haven't been on the fitness trail since then, so. But anyway, people do walk back and forth, anyway. So do I have an exact number of pedestrians right in that location? No, but we do have observed quite a bit of pedestrian activity in that location that isn't directed toward a formalized crossing.
There's
Okay, that was
actually
the
a,
purpose of my question was that if it related specifically to this area, why was it so pronounced? I see where it's going. It turns a corner, actually, kind of has a little flip to it at the end on Middlesex. Where was all that traffic coming from? Was this anything that led to why that spot has to have a sidewalk?
there is a worn footpath down that area.
Yeah, we were kind of walking at it.
Yeah. So people
Dangerous.
are walking there today.
All right, we need to move on. John, anything? Nope. All right. Could you clarify, what is the slope ratio as it currently exists now?
Today it's 2 to 1.
It's 2 to 1 existing. Okay, and it's going to be?
1.5 to 1.
It's going to be 1.5 to 1. And that's because you're coming out 5 feet, then you're going to have a guardrail, And anything else past the guardrail?
A fence as well for
You're gonna
fall
have-
protection.
You're going to have a fence for what?
Fall protection to prevent people from climbing over the guardrail and then rolling down the slope.
What's the
into
purpose of the
well.
guardrail? Because when you hit the, when you hit
It
the people
happens.
before you get to the guardrail, I mean, what's the purpose of the
Wait a
guardrail?
minute. So, in other words, in all of the places in town, we have a guardrail, and there are slopes on the other side of the guardrail, and I haven't noticed people falling over guardrails.
They tend to step over them. I haven't observed every sidewalk in Burlington, but I don't know if there's a sidewalk adjacent to the guardrail. In those conditions, there is.
We wouldn't want them slithering down into the wetland.
Yeah.
Is that an ADA compliance issue as well?
It's not an ADA, it's just
Just
something
curious.
Simon would like to protect themselves from.
And what kind of fence are they putting up?
It's a 6-foot-high chain link black vinyl.
So it's going to be really attractive.
The black vinyl tends to blend in.
And how much space, width-wise, does it take up from the guardrail to the fence? How much space do you
From the
take?
cross-section here. We have the 5-foot sidewalk, and then you need, the guardrail itself is about 18 inches in depth. We allow for 3 feet for it to actually be constructed. And then the fence is right behind that.
So it's 3 feet behind the guardrail, then a fence?
The fence is, let's just call it 3.5 feet from the back of sidewalk to the center of the fence post, and the guardrail falls in between that.
All right, so it's 3.5 feet between the end of the sidewalk to the fence.
Yes.
Why do they need the guardrail if they have the fence? This guardrail's not, I mean, if a car is going to jump the curb, it's going to hit the people before it hits the guardrail.
Well, there's a steep slope down to the wetland, and there's a guardrail there today, so we would recommend guardrail there.
It seems like you're doing two, kind of double duty here, basically, and then it's taking up extra space of the slope there.
Well, the fence really only takes up about 6 inches, and regardless, behind the guardrail, you really want to have a 2-foot shoulder for vehicle impact. So the fence is just going within the area that is there anyhow. So there's no added width to the cross-section due to the fence.
So there's no system that allows that acts as a guardrail and a fence at the same time?
You could, but there's no land area savings in a system like that. Because you have the 2-foot shoulder behind the guardrail in any scenario, so the fence is just going within that 2 feet. The 2 feet's not growing because of the fence.
Oh, okay. I understand now. All right, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
So, the question that's in my mind is, we have other areas with steep slopes, very steep slopes in town. And what comes, 2 areas, I was trying to think, what 2 areas come to mind? Well, 2 areas that came to mind, one is Wegmans, and they were able to stabilize that. Another one is Corporate Drive. There may be some others, and those slopes are very steep. So I was wondering what system they use to vegetate those slopes.
I can't speak to that, but the systems that I'm aware of all involve GeoGrid or Gabion block wrapped systems, which are very unattractive. But again, with the GeoGrid tiebacks, you could achieve a 1.5 to 1 vegetated slope. However, the tiebacks would likely go back into the traveled way of Burlington Mall Road. So to install that, you're ripping up the road, ripping up the curb, ripping up the
How far
drainage.
back do the tiebacks would have to go?
The rule of thumb is usually the height that you're trying to hold back is the length of the tieback. So in some cases, in excess of 14 feet.
Are there areas that you could do some of that? Areas? Like where you
What
might
was,
have that depth?
Kristen, what was the?
No, I apologize for jumping in.
No, that's all right. I was just wondering what you were saying.
No, if there was areas, I mean, there certainly are areas you can't do that because you're in the travel lane, but are there areas that you might be able to do that to break it up a little bit so you do have some vegetated slope? Where you might have that depth?
Without looking at it super closely, the slope is all pretty consistent in terms of how far we're graded out. They're may be an opportunity here, but it still looks pretty tight.
Okay.
All right, and in order to do those tiebacks, you'd have to dig up Mall Road, is what you're saying?
Most likely, yeah.
Most likely, or you would?
I mean, we haven't engineered that, but the rule of thumb is the height that you're retaining is the tieback length.
And in most of the, how high is the height?
It ranges, I think at most it's about 14 feet.
14 feet. Measured from where?
Get you an exact.
So the tiebacks go in the middle of the wall, the middle of the slope.
So they actually go at multiple levels all through it. It ranges in heights. It can be 12 inches to 18 inches, and there's multiple tiebacks through the system. The other piece to think about with that is that if that sewer line was ever needed to be replaced, you're digging through all the geogrid to replace the sewer line, and now you have to replace the slope system as well. Another piece to consider that I forgot to mention.
Well, I would encourage you to look and see if there's any other alternate system. I'm not the engineer, so I don't know of them. But I would encourage you to talk with your colleagues to see if they have any ideas. I think the commission would like to see that slope vegetated if possible, or part of it vegetated if possible. And so any ideas you could bring forth would be very much appreciated.
And also, I'd encourage them to speak with the office about things that could be offered as improvements for work in the riverfront.
I mean, essentially, for riverfront, it requires an improvement to do work in this zone, right?
Right.
And in this case, they're saying it's not feasible to do any improvement. Is that your
Correct.
interpretation?
Right.
And so we have no choice but to permit it. Isn't that?
Couldn't we mitigate?
Choice, certainly.
We
Well,
could
we
do,
have a choice.
we don't have to approve it, but we could also, if we wanted to approve it, ask for improvement someplace else, yes or no? Like if there's some site that's degraded that might benefit from improvement, would that be something that would be?
And who?
But would we be asking the town, or would we
Yeah,
be
exactly.
asking
The applicant.
the applicant?
There
is a
Town
town.
is the
Town is the
applicant.
applicant.
So,
Yeah, Simon Mall, is it Simon,
Yeah, so-
Simon Mall is paying for it and the town is the applicant, is that the way it works?
Correct.
So essentially, if we ask the town to look for an improvement somewhere else in order to satisfy the regs that there is an improvement in the riverfront area somehow for all the work that's being done, we'd essentially be asking Simon's Mall to fund another project somewhere else.
Right, but this project does benefit Simon's Properties.
Never-ending
I mean-
cascade.
What?
This could be a never-ending cascade at this rate.
Did I misstate something?
they're gonna build your bridge.
Oh,
No, I think,
I don't know.
I think there is still a relationship between the town and Simon in this final design.
there is a relationship still?
Yes.
It's nothing written.
Well, in order, in terms of, what is it that this final design is part of the reason we're here, so.
Negotiate,
All right, well,
We have not reviewed the wetland delineation on this. Certainly, when we go look at it, we'll see if there's opportunities to improve the riverfront area down at the bottom. Even if there were a riprap slope installed, there may be opportunities within the riverfront area down below that could be made. So we'll check that out next week.
And part of this underground, right? The part of the river goes under, right, through the culvert and.
Right,
correct?
eventually, yeah.
So, in terms of the improvement, does it have to be at that, as long as it's on the same river? Does it, in terms of how it's written?
That's up to you. So it's riverfront under the bylaw only,
Maybe
not under the
even
Wetlands
daylight
Protection
somewhere.
Act. So you have a lot of discretion under your bylaw.
Okay.
you have discretion, but if it doesn't meet the intent of the riverfront bylaw regulations, theoretically, when it comes to a vote, I haven't heard an overwhelming support for voting for this project or against this project. I haven't heard anything. So, I'd say it was in the town's interest to come forward with some kind of a way to seek improvement, which, to the riverfront area, given all the work that's being done to sort of destroy riverfront. I just don't know where this is going, to be honest. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this has been a challenging section of sidewalk. It's a reason it wasn't built with Burlington Mall Road when it was built. So, you know, we have the opportunity here to have this discussion and create that link, knowing that it's tough and there's definitely plus and minuses, and I hope we can certainly figure that out, the connection, through this process.
Okay, well, we'll see you at the next meeting. Any new ideas you come up with between now and then that could be presented at the next meeting would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, is there anyone in the audience for this one? Burlington Mall sidewalks? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, item 8, notice is given. The commission will have a public hearing, during which time we'll take all information related to a notice of intent filed by the town of Burlington DPW for the demolition of existing structures and the construction of a new DPW facility at 1-3 Great Meadow Road in Burlington. The proposed work would be within the riverfront area and the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. It's being heard under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The commission will be reviewing information relative to this application and may issue an order of conditions. The application materials available in the Conservation Office for public review.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's the new tradition. So, you know, with all this work over, oh, they're so fascinating. All road, I'm seeing bikers. Because they're putting up bike racks everywhere, but there's no bike lanes. It's just. Ed instead? Sure, go ahead, yeah. Sorry.
Ed and I can check.
Or do I have? I didn't want to give you paper.
Oh, yeah, I know. Why kill more trees, right? I'm supposed to be hugging them.
I started to print that. I said,
Discussion of the options.
So much redundancy. Like,
Oh, he's, yeah.
they get paid by the page.
He brought 2 books. Yeah, that's what I told him.
library still open?
He's doing the contest in the library. So he said he'll just log in.
Good one. Oh, gosh.
Green cards. Harry's not allowed to make me the deciding vote on this.
Had a quick look through and it was.
Did you hear that, Larry? I'm not allowed to be the deciding vote on anything this week.
You're not to what?
I'm not going to be the deciding vote on anything this week.
All right, good evening, sir.
My name is John Sanchez. I'm the DPW director. Tonight we're very excited. Actually, this is our first stop to get the permits for what it will hopefully be our DPW and recreation facilities. It's taken well over 10 years, and some people have told me over 25 years to actually get to this point. I know over the last 10, a lot of work trying to search for property, changing designs and which direction we needed to take. And after making a lot of loops, and we came back to pretty much square one, which is that we unfortunately could not have the facility located anywhere else in town, lack of land. But we ended up with a very good proposal to actually locate at two facilities, which is currently the Highway Division at 1 Great Meadow Road, and also the property that the town purchased a few years ago on Clark and Reed. The idea is to actually build a facility and try to utilize the space the best way possible and without duplicating a lot of the amenities that the sites may have to have, which is why all along the Parks and Recreation were part of this project. This is a town project. This is not a DPW project. Had it been a DPW project, we probably would have been able to build it years ago, but it will not be a good service for the town. For the town as a whole, as we should, we have to have a proposal in which we actually address the two issues at once. The two projects, this is one project we're presenting tonight, is at two different sites, and there's a reason for that. It'll be bid as one project. We need to permit it as one project as well, so we can actually proceed with the rest of design and bidding and construction. So tonight, Jeff Alberti from Weston and Sampson is going to present and go through the process, and as well as some other members of the Tony. One last thing I want to say, I want to thank all the members of the committee who are here tonight. The town did form a building committee for this project, and the committee has been working for many months actually to get to where we are here. So thank you for attending tonight as well. Jeff?
Thank you. So my name is Jeff Alberti. I'm a vice president with Weston and Sampson, and I've been involved in this project for many years, and I'm pleased to be here this evening to present the project. I have Tony Westpizer with me, who's been involved from day one with me. And we also have several support staff, Tyler Cofelici, Zach Wallen, and Mel Higgins, who were involved. We thought it would be good to have as many people here as possible so that if you do have questions, I might ask them to answer some of the more technical issues. And I'll try to provide an overview of the project. And at any time, if you'd like to interrupt me, that's fine, or I can just continue through it. I do have one quick question. So you have both sites on the agenda. Do you want me to go through the entire presentation, or do you want to start with the first site, Site 1, 1 Great Meadow Road, and then have discussions and then present?
Why don't we do one site at a time?
Okay. All right, great. So let me get started with the overview of the project. This is what's referred to as 1 Great Meadow Road, or 1-3, the way that it's written. This is an overview of the site location. And what we have is, you can see in the middle of your screen, the existing DPW site, 1 Great Meadow Road. 128 is running across the bottom of your screen. Route 3 is over to the left, and adjacent to that is Middlesex Turnpike. As you zoom in on the site to take a closer look, you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's the existing DPW site where we're starting this presentation. This is a survey of the site. I've generally highlighted the areas in red just to help you focus in, because there's a lot of line work associated with the survey for the sites. Generally speaking, there's multiple structures that are scattered throughout the site, the main facility in the center, several ancillary structures throughout the site, with parking across the street. The shaded in area represents the limits of disturbance and travel services that are used on a daily basis for the operations that exist there. I've kind of dimmed it out to help you see the resource areas and setbacks. I'm just going to walk through those quickly. Starting with the limits of the top of Bank for what we're referring to as the unnamed tributary to Vine Brook, and that's shown in blue dashed. And then off of that, you have your 100-foot, 200-foot riverfront area associated with that top of Bank. To the northern part of the screen is the limit for the bordering vegetated wetland and the 100-foot wetland buffer. I've shown in red the 20-foot no disturbed. And also in blue, you can see the 100-year floodplain that circles a large portion of the site. So that's a just general overview of the resource areas and setbacks that we've been working with for the submission. So going back to give you a sense of what exists there for those that may not have gotten to the site, I've just taken some photographs to show you the conditions. It is a historically used for public works, and it doesn't meet today's standards for stormwater protection primarily. And this is a view looking from the parking area across the street towards the site. As you move on the site, you can see the front of the main DPW building. Primarily, the site is primarily paved for access and use by public works operations. As you look further back, you can see that because of the smaller size, a lot of this equipment, large trucks, vehicles, plows, and attachments are stored outdoors. This is a photograph showing you one of the photos from this past winter. There is really no stormwater management system associated with this site, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then looking at some of the yard areas, you can see some photographs of some of the materials that are stockpiled and used on a daily basis. As we look at the existing stormwater system, it's really quite easy to document, and I just show it with some blue lines. And essentially what we are seeing is that it's really untreated sheet flow stormwater runoff from the site, which is really one of the goals of this project, in addition to meeting the operational efficiency needs of Public Works, is to resolve that and come up with a much better managed stormwater system. And we've gone out there multiple times and we try to document this best we can, but again, just showing you a quick video. You see the arrow on the bottom of your screen. One of our staff went out there during a rainstorm, and this was the video showing the water coming off of that site, untreated, right under the, right off the edge of the paved areas, right into the wetland areas. So our hope is that we can take care of that and manage that under the new proposed development. So what we're proposing for One Great Meadow Road really starts with demolishing the existing structures. They have no value to the operations. They've exceeded their useful lives. And also removing the existing pavement and travel surfaces, really creating a blank slate for us to come up with a state-of-the-art, efficient, safe, and regulatory conscious development. So once we had that clean slate, we ultimately came up with the preferred alternative that's shown here with the proposed DPW facility. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's included. This image here shows you the regulatory areas and setbacks that I went through earlier. And as you can see, we're staying out of the 20-foot no disturb, but primarily developing the area that has been previously developed for many years. This is just a quick view of the floor plan, and really the most important item that I wanted to point out that's important, I think, from a Conservation Commission perspective and protection of the environment is that large area in the bottom of your screen. That's the vehicle and equipment storage area. So as I showed you in some of those earlier photographs, you have large equipment that's dealing with salt, sand, has oils, grease. A lot of that's stored outdoors because they don't have room. What we're proposing is this vehicle and equipment storage garage where all that equipment will be stored undercover. Anything that comes off those vehicles when they're stored will go into floor drains and into the sewer system, not into the stormwater system. So I think that alone is a great benefit to the project. The other areas represent some shop areas as well as the employee facilities, the offices, locker, shower, toilets. So through the process to come up with that preferred alternative that I showed you earlier, we did go through an alternatives analysis because we are within the riverfront area, and that was included in our submission. And I just wanted to highlight some of the steps that we took. As I mentioned, I've been involved in this for many years. We started the site selection process back in 2012. Along the way, any site that became available, we evaluated it. We listed 4 primary sites that were evaluated, including the 2 sites that are being discussed tonight, 10 Great Meadow Road, which was also combined with an adjacent parcel. At the time, we were looking to see if we could purchase that to create a larger campus. Also, Site 2, which is the existing DPW. We looked at a parcel on Grant Ave as well as on Adams Street. Through that evaluation process, we determined that Sites 3 and 4 were not viable for multiple reasons. From regulatory availability, some of these sites were privately owned and state-owned, and there was just no way to really get through that red tape, as well as financial perspectives with regard to trying to purchase those. Site 1 and 2, the 2 Great Meadow Road sites were determined to be suitably sized to meet the operational needs. From there, as we developed alternatives, we went through a series of 3 alternatives for the 1 Great Meadow Road site that is within that riverfront area. We analyzed each of those alternatives, and we identified alternative 3, and I'll show you those in a moment, as the preferred alternative. But we did put some minor modifications into it to actually make it better than what you'll see in a moment, and I'll go through those as well. But what we determined is that that alternative was properly sized, it was safe, it was efficient, and it was environmentally conscientious with regard to the development of that site. This is an overview of those three alternatives that were presented in the alternatives analysis. And if you look closely at alternative option 1 that we looked at, what we did is ultimately evaluated each one operationally, but then also went through advantages and disadvantages, and what I've really pulled out to help you understand why we ended up with option 3 are the disadvantages. In this particular option, the building is pulled further away from the top of bank. However, what we found is in order to provide the access around the building, we had paving that extended south of the site, and you can see it a little bit better by the dark line that I'm showing you there. That's over that edge of the embankment, and it's moving down towards the floodplain and towards the top of bank. We also found that because of that, we would have to have significant retaining walls, anywhere from, we estimate 7 to 10 feet in some areas, to try to maintain a level area to provide the access. That would require some significant soils removal very close to the top of bank. And this would also put vehicle traffic moving around the facility and close to that edge of the embankment where I showed you the video, and that would have the potential for untreated runoff from overspray or splashing from making its way over the curbing and over the embankment. The bulk material storage bins are shown on the left-hand side. You can see them over here on the left. This is where materials are used for daily operations, and they're stockpiled, and with them being so close, there's the potential they could be filled up and accidentally spill over and then make their way towards the top of bank. We found that this option had more pavement area, more impervious surface, and also the front of the building, as shown here, is within the setback, and it exceeds the amount of facade that currently is within the setback. And based on some discussions at the DCM, that could be problematic. And what that might do is require us to have to shift that building down on the page, closer to the top of bank. And also what we found is the canopy that's shown here, where vehicles will need to access this canopy from the bottom of the page. This space, we determined through some turning tests, was not adequate to get the vehicles in and out. As a result, we anticipate anywhere from another 5 to 10 feet would have to be added. So if you look at that black line where it is now, and you can see the top of bank generally down in this area, we would have to shift that line even further down, potentially getting right at that edge of top of bank, and through construction means and methods, we would have issues with impacts.
Can I just ask, what's the purpose of the canopy? I don't understand it.
So the canopy is to put some equipment that is not heat sensitive or cold sensitive under a 3-sided structure, so it's open in the front, but you're able to, it's a less expensive way of storing equipment.
Does it have to be attached to the building, or could it be anywhere on the site?
It could be anywhere on the site. In fact, we do have another option shown in here for storage of equipment. But the problem is, under this scenario here, because of this configuration, this shop area requires door access, and we had to put the doors on the inside. That displaces vehicles, and as a result, we had to add a second canopy in order to meet the operational needs.
Could you also, why don't we have anybody who has a question on option 1 before we go to option 2?
Sure.
Perhaps. So my question on the employee facilities, what is that used for? What does it consist of?
That consists of supervisor offices, locker, shower, toilet facilities, employee break room, and training room. So it's your basic office type environment for the staff. I shouldn't say office, it's more of the workforce, gathering, training, storm event location. But it is fit out like an office environment.
And what kind of work happens in the shop?
Shop, we like to just refer to this as like rainy day projects, meaning when they're not out because of inclement weather, they can do any carpentry or general repair needs of the community. It's tough to define it because basically what we find
But
is
not repair on vehicles?
No, repair vehicles is not done on this site. That's actually moved to the other site. It currently is done there, but we've relocated it to 10 Great Meadow Road.
And would any any equipment that has any type of motor that's either gas or oil be stored in these canopy areas?
There's potential for them, yes. But the canopy areas are connected to floor drains, and any runoff from that is actually going to go
There are floor
to-
drains in the canopy?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we designed that so that it could be enclosed in the future, so therefore we put the floor drains in, it goes to the sewer system. At least on the connected one. The one that is on the side most likely would just be sheet runoff because there's no way to connect it into the systems efficiently.
Anybody else question about option one? Why did you say it needed a retaining wall? Because the site seems like it's fairly flat. So it's not clear why you would need a retaining wall.
Can you see my arrow okay on the?
Yes.
So this line here,
Yes.
I'm following, generally represents the top of the slope. And it starts to drop off pretty steep from there.
Right.
So the initial alternative, you can see the edge of the shaded area is already past that. And because you have to provide, essentially this site needs to be a level pad. You can't have a stepped site because of the access. So with that edge of pavement extending past that top of slope, you're now having to build a retaining wall to keep that level. And as I mentioned, this is where it's currently shown, but based on the operational analysis that we went through with Public Works, it's more likely going to be further away from the building and closer to the resource, the top of bank, and therefore, the further you get, it's going to be more difficult to construct.
I see. Okay.
So, how much is the asphalt pavement now, and how much would be the pavement after you doing the option one?
So I can tell you that option one, just speaking to the three alternatives that we looked at, alternative three that we ultimately ended up with was about 41,400 square feet. This particular one is about 50,500 square feet.
And how much is the existing?
I believe, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'll see if I can grab it from these guys. Well, you can I'll look it up. Would you like me to go on to option two?
Please.
Okay. So option two, and I'm sorry, it's a little bit light if you want me to dim the lights at all. Otherwise, I'll use my mouse to kind of show you
Anyone want the
building.
lights dimmed at all?
Fine.
Okay. So you can see the shaded area represents this building, and what this does is this brought the building south on the site, and you can see that we eliminated that drive around. So we wanted to try to avoid going over this top of slope that I mentioned earlier. And so what we did is we had the building follow essentially that limit, except for a small area where the canopy is on this right-hand side. And what we had to do was actually angle the building here so that we didn't go over that slope. And we also went with a side entrance. And what we found through this analysis was that this option was about 45,800 square feet compared to option three that we ended up with. Again, at the conceptual level, was about 41,000 square feet. This side access was problematic from an operational perspective, primarily because when vehicles come in a side, normally you have vehicles parked on the side. Now this becomes a circulation aisle. So after we completed this analysis and we did a layout of the equipment, we determined that we would likely need to increase the vehicle storage garage to meet the operational requirements. Thereby, we would be increasing the impervious area on site once that adjustment was made. We also, the canopy couldn't be located on the west side, or the canopy on the west side, because of the circulation requirements to get vehicles into these spaces was being shifted further to the left on your screen, which is to the west, closer to the top of bank. And we also found that this separated canopy, because it would not be connected through the sewer system, it doesn't have the same utility connections if it was connected to the main building. And being that it's open, would have some flow out of that structure, which could make into the stormwater system. What we also found is this upper portion of the canopy could be problematic and might have to be reduced in size to its location to the Great Meadow Road. And if that were to happen, we'd either be increasing the storage garage even more, or we'd have some equipment stored outdoors. But there were some advantages that we saw to this alternative. So as you saw in option 1, we had a page and a half of disadvantages. This had 1 page. So we really used this as an opportunity through the process to come up with option 3. So the advantages that we found with option 3, and I'm happy to answer any questions before I move on if you'd like on option 2.
Anyone? Comments, questions?
Is the footprint area is the same in option?
Yes. Right now, as they are, they're shown generally the same, but after our analysis, we determined this one will likely increase.
Now, the canopy looks like it's over the wall.
It is over in this area?
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I'll show you, and in option 3, it's also over that. And so I'll talk a little bit about those minor modifications that we made when we determined this was the best option. We then took it to the next level of trying to improve it, knowing that we are in close proximity to resource areas or within resource areas. And I'll talk about that in one moment. So briefly on the advantages that we found in this option 3, it provided very efficient access to the building, minimizing the footprint. So we're able to put doors on either end of the building, which really allows for us to maximize the vehicle and equipment storage inside, minimizing the footprint in the building. There's no perimeter road required, so we're keeping vehicles away from that edge. It has the smallest pavement area out of the 3 options. A portion of the previously disturbed area to the south of the site, you can see that generally over in this area here, is going to be returned to a vegetated pervious state. I'll talk more about that in a moment. We've taken that bulk material, which you saw in one of the earlier options on this perimeter edge here, and we moved that as far as we could to the opposite side. We had no standalone retaining walls required under this option. It met all the operational needs of DPW. And as I mentioned, we took it to the next step of coming up with some improvements. And as you look at this, these are a list of the improvements. And to really illustrate them, I'll show you just through a couple of slides, starting with the bottom right canopy. So there was a larger canopy that was originally shown there, and we felt the need that we needed to get it out of where it was over that top of the bank. So we reduced the footprint of that canopy, and then we took that canopy and we shifted it up on the page. That got us outside of where we were extending over that embankment, and would therefore likely need some retaining structures. We also chamfered the corners of the storage garage. So if you're looking at this large storage garage, these corners, which don't have a lot of value from operational need, it just gets some small storage in those corners. We're getting close to the top of bank and to the stream in those areas, so we actually took those corners, and they're shown in red, and we clipped them. And we created a new footprint that brought the building back, actually reduced our building a little bit, and we're able to increase that separation, which we thought worked well. And then we also had a large facade of the building on the left-hand side, the west side. We actually looked, and we were able to reduce the shop areas slightly, and then we took the office and shop areas. We did a quick switch of the operations so that we could improve some of the setbacks and center them on the building. That ended up with a new footprint, which we feel is improved and is taken into consideration some of the regulatory restrictions or improvements that we could incorporate into it. One thing worth noting is that this perimeter of the site that's primarily developed and used for operations, what we're finding through the development of these plans is that option 3 would decrease the impervious area by approximately 2,100 square feet along that edge of the site near the stream within the riverfront area. So we felt that that was a great improvement.
So what is the area inside the red dotted line?
That's just showing you the areas where we come up with our calculation for the 2,100 square feet.
Okay.
And then one of the other discussions, we've had several DCM meetings, and we've had some great input along the way, and we know that you have a wetlands bylaw, and I know you were talking about it earlier. And 21.7 is on the riverfront area, talks about setbacks for structures. And the photograph on the left is the existing conditions, and through your regulations, it says that the setback for buildings shall be 50 feet or no closer than existing structures. So using that in our original development, we took a look at 2 existing structures that were on the edge of the property on the south side of the site. I have it blown up to show you a little bit better down below. You can see that those two structures are 24 and 31 foot off of the top of bank. And I did add a photograph because there were some discussions about are those structures or are those not structures. The building officials' comment at the time were if they have a roof and they're connected to the support system, in this case the end walls, side walls, that it would likely be considered a structure. However, we obviously need to present that to you and get your opinion on that as well. So if you look at that particular scenario with a 24-foot setback existing and we can be no closer, we took a look at our proposed plan, and again, just blowing up the closest area, we range from 28 or 29 feet from those two locations that I'm showing in red. So 28 feet on the right, 29 feet here, so it's no closer than the 24 feet. However, if you determine that you did not feel that these were structures, the next closest structure is shown over here on the left of the site. This is the former, or the dog pound area. That's about 51 feet. So if you felt that these should not be considered structures, we would like to request a waiver to section 21.7 for the building setback in the riverfront area accordingly. So I thought I'd at least walk you through our thought process and open it up for any discussion at any time during the meeting.
All right. Thank you for that summary.
I still have more. Do you want me to quickly go through it, or you had enough? I can go quick if you like.
I was deciding whether to give you an honest answer or no.
I'll do it. I'll do it more quick this time.
Let me clarify. This is one of the better presentations I've ever seen here on the commission. So please, if you have more to go, please continue.
I know you guys have an agenda, so let me.
This.
We'll be on the agenda.
So let me talk quickly about the stormwater system, and that is just touching on our system. We have deep sound-footed catch basins shown with the blue triangles. We have hydrodynamic separators, as well as on this site, we have underground chambers with isolation rows. And it's important to note that we're not planning to infiltrate because of the historic contamination on site. The site is under temporary solution. The DP, meaning it's closed, it just needs monitoring, but because there is low levels of contamination, we do not want to be infiltrating, which could promote migration of contamination. So the system is designed not to infiltrate. But having said that, we've gone through our TSS calculations and using the deep sump-footed catch basins and the water quality structures and the isolator rows, we achieved the 80% TSS. We did not assume that the water quality structures would give us 80 or 90%, or there's a lot of debate about what is allowed, and I know that DEP has commented on other projects in town and said 25% they would consider acceptable, so we've used that calculation. So for each of the areas, we've achieved the 80% TSS removal. Our peak rate attenuation, our post-development do not exceed our pre-development. That's included in our submission. And then just in closing on this site, there are a lot of improvements, and that includes eliminating that untreated sheet flow that I showed you in that video. Provides a building which will store the vehicles inside, collect the runoff in floor drains, discharge the sewer system in lieu of the drainage system. It's a new stormwater system meeting the 80% TSS removal. We decreased the impervious area by 2,100 square feet along the perimeter, improving that riverfront area that we discussed. We'll be able to remove existing trash and debris that has accumulated over the years within that riverfront area as part of this project. And the project provides a better physical containment system around the perimeter to prevent that debris migrating towards the stream. Probably the best deterrent is the fact that things go inside the building. So right there alone, and that sums it up for that site. Thank you.
Where you have that perimeter going around on the right, the oval, half moon shape there, you got a lot of stalls in there. Is that for like mulch, gravel, things of that sort?
Correct.
Is that pitched down so that it doesn't run out in stormwater?
It pitches towards the center of the site.
All right, let's
actually, so can you just discuss the employee parking lot too?
Oh, sure.
As part of this project.
Sure, we do have some parking that's on the front. I can get to a larger one, but I'll talk to this for a moment. And then across the street, they currently park in an area across the street, and we're improving that, and that also meets all of this. So there will be parking across it. No DPW vehicles, privately owned.
Okay.
We did have a detention basin there. We've gone to underground so that we have provided a vegetated area over here on the right that can be used by the public. It provides a green area versus having a detention manage this.
All right. John, do you have, I see 4 areas, John, where that a lot of our questions are going to fit into. There may be other areas. I see compliance with the regulations and what is required versus what they're providing, how we see it. I see there may be further discussion on alternatives. I see, I think we need a little more discussion on the contamination. And then the last thing is, when we went to the information session, and prior to that, when I've had conversations with Mr. Sanchez, we talked about, and were you there, sir? Were you at the information session?
The DCM ones?
I think he's referring to the joint meeting.
The joint meeting?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and so you may remember, I brought this up multiple times about the commission is potentially looking for a walking path around.
Yes.
Okay, and as we also talked about a possible bird observation area. And,
yes.
And that's, we asked you to sort of keep that in the back of your mind, and you were nodding, you didn't say yes to it, but you were saying, yes, we will look at it.
Yes.
That's what you said.
In fact, that was that area that I mentioned, the bird observation area, that we did change the design following that meeting to provide that to be, it used to be a detention basin to be used for that. So now it's a level vegetated area. Public could park in that parking lot when it's not being used.
We can talk about the details of that, okay, in a little while. So I saw those areas and I thought that probably one of the more difficult ones might be compliance with regulations, whether we think it's in compliance or with both the alternatives analysis presented and with the location of the building relative to our setbacks and so forth.
Right.
So as with that as a sort of an introduction, I was going to, the reason I said that is I would like, there's so much here, and this site is probably one of the more difficult sites in town for us to permit this. I want to leave the small details to a sort of a later point and dwell on those main subjects, whatever people think are the main subjects. So with that as an introduction, John.
So which point? The alternatives analysis?
Well, any of those things you have comments on, those are where I see.
Okay, so I mean, I think the alternatives analysis is fairly comprehensive. They reviewed off-site possibilities, and they've been doing that for a number of years, and they incorporated that in their alternatives analysis, and then they have 3 different layouts within this site. So I think the alternatives analysis meets the regulations.
Okay. Should we talk about that for a moment and then go on to the next subject? Does anyone on the commission feel that there's some alternative that has it? I have an idea I'd like to explore with you folks, but I want to see if anyone else has anything. Is there any alternative?
I just want to ask you, option 1 and option 3. Is option 3, the building is closer to the bank than option 1?
Yes.
Okay.
But please keep in mind that option 1, when it was first developed, we pushed it up as high as we could. But if we were to say that that's the preferred alternative and then begin the process of advancing it to the level that this is, you know, more advanced in evaluating all the different issues, it will likely come down anywhere from 10 to 20 feet. And therefore, I think that you're going to find that the building will be close, maybe a little bit further than option 3, but the pavement areas will be much further into closer to the bank. And in fact, my bigger concern with option 1 is that pushing of that line will then be in the floodplain. And we don't have any place for compensatory storage. So I think that alone would be a deal breaker, is the floodplain that we would back.
Can it be, can you keep option 3, but put the building away from as in option 1?
So we actually are going to be going to a planning board. We pushed this building as far as we could. Essentially, we're within the setback of what's required. But what we did is we set it exactly where the existing building is. So it's as far as it can go, as far as north on the page. We maximized, but we can't go any further based on the zoning.
So option 3, the canopy is over the bank?
It is not. When we made that shift, it brought it back into where the site is. So this, you can see that jog over here in the bottom right?
Yeah.
So that brought it, so we're not out over that bank.
So to clarify, some of those changes were made after the plans that we have, the commission has the plans.
No, that's in there, right? This jog?
So we have, that's,
You should have a
As
double.
far as,
so it's not, it's still pretty close.
as far,
that.
John, as far as the plan that shows the alternatives analysis, option 3, that plan has been modified, that layout has been modified to this.
And that's what was submitted.
But the site plan has this.
The site plan has this.
Okay. The alternative analysis is in here, was the pages in here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It's clear to me that you did a lot of work looking at evaluating the 3 alternatives. It doesn't come across in the written write-up. Okay? And one of the things that the regulations say is, you know, they sort of give you the template for how to take that information that you presented, and they mention that in the regulations, in the state regulations even, they mention that the evaluation of alternatives, they talk about cost. They talk about how cost should be evaluated, and trying to find out logistics, I remember, and existing technology, the proposed use, costs, and logistics. Okay. And they say that here, under cost, they say higher or lower cost taken alone will not determine whether an alternative is practicable. That's the whole purpose of that evaluation. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your evaluation. It's just that I've seen DEP actually reject alternative analysis because, one, because you didn't look at alternative sites outside of this, which you did, so you're covered there. And B, I've seen DEP reject alternative analysis because each alternative wasn't talked about with respect to those parameters. It's clear that the information's available, actually easily available. You present it much more here than was in the write-up.
Correct.
So one request I have, and I think this would be good for your submittal when it goes to DEP, would be to take some of that information on the slides and actually, if we could leave that as an action item.
Sure.
Yes.
One thing I would like to note is we provided supplemental information based on discussions that we had with John earlier this week. And
the stuff we just got?
In the smaller book that you just received this evening that was handed out, there is some more information, not the cost and logistics types details that you're talking about there, but there is more information about the disadvantages of options 1 and 2 and the advantages of options 3. So the extent that the original submittal didn't have a lot of detail on our comparison of the 3 options, we added some more detail to that, and it's included.
Well, if you think that satisfies the regulations as to what they're looking for, and then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
I'm just suggesting you take a look at it.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll take what was submitted here, our presentation, and what was in the original. We'll combine those into an updated one, and we'll give you a nice, concise one to make sure.
I mean, my reaction during your presentation was all this information that you talked about fits into those categories that are required. Sure. And so it's not a big ask.
Not a big lift at all. No, we'll definitely do that. Okay. Thanks.
All right, so,
I have a question regarding the building itself. I mean, the biggest feature of the building is for vehicle storage.
Correct.
How is the size of that determined? I mean, is the number of vehicles that it can hold what we currently own, or what you hope to have in the future? Is it bigger than currently needed?
No, through the process over the years, we've developed a fairly tight program so that it meets the current operations, but it does have some potential for growth within the building for additional vehicles, because what we don't want is all of a sudden have them buy one and have to be outside. But it's not built as just empty spots. The building's just designed to accept it in different ways, meaning there's a center drive-through aisle. They could park 5 or 6 vehicles in that aisle, therefore they're still undercover. So it is not designed to what I would say is the bare minimum, but it has flexibility.
right now,
Can I just say,
John, go
I
ahead.
noticed that all of the, in all the options, the office and the shops are always on the north side of the building. Is that a purposeful thing, or is that worthy of looking at the other order?
Yeah, one of the most important things from an operational perspective is safety, and so we want to have areas that might have vendors or might have public come to the building to be closer to the road, so they're not traversing through the site and therefore mixing with larger vehicles, which becomes a safety issue for DPW facilities. So that was our main goal of having that component. And the shops is directly related to the staff that utilize the employee facilities, and you don't want you want to have that adjacency for an efficiency standpoint of workflow. Whereas if it was on the opposite side, they're cutting through a storage garage, again creating a safety issue just to get to a shop. So it was really driven by the operational efficiencies and safety.
Now, anyone else on the committee want to talk about alternatives? Comments? All right, I have one question then. I think I have seen DPW facilities, I can't remember where, but I have this feeling I've seen DPW facilities where they put the offices on the second floor.
Yes.
Why isn't that one of the obvious, I mean, to me, it's one of the obvious options here that would alleviate the heartburn that the commission I suspect is feeling from the lack of compliance with the 50-foot setback.
Sure. So that's a great question. We did evaluate that internally as we do a series of charrettes with our staff, with our architect. And the biggest challenge with putting that space, if you took that employee facility space and try to put it over the shops, is that the shops have an interior clearance requirement where they have mezzanines as well inside.
Right.
We would exceed any kind of height restriction there is. And so therefore, you don't want it over a shop. Same with the vehicle storage garage because of the large vehicle. The places where you find stacked areas is if you have a large administration function, which is not part of this building, and then a large employee function. A lot of times we find in public works facilities, and we have done several, that the employee facilities and the administration functions are very similar. We'll stack those. But this doesn't have that because this is just operations. There's really no ability to stack it over the shops because it'll be too high. It would actually...
If the height is the issue, let me interrupt you for 1 second. Can you get a waiver from planning to put that in? I don't know if they do that or not.
That would be the Board of Appeals, but this is actually zoned residential, correct?
Yeah.
It's RO.
And so it's 30 feet?
Something like that.
That's for next week.
37 maybe, I'm not sure. It's not high.
One of the other bigger concerns is the shop areas, they have vehicles inside. Vehicle storage has vehicles inside. We don't recommend putting office environments above a space that has vehicles below because of a few migration issues and noise issues. So it's a last resort. I don't honestly think I've done about 120 facilities, DPW facilities. I've only done one where we extended any kind of office area over a shop.
Okay.
Are you using a shop space for vehicle storage? So if you're not working on vehicles here, why would you have vehicles in the shop?
So vehicles will be accessing that shop during the day to offload materials and
So
load.
temporary?
Yes, yeah.
Come and
yeah.
go, okay.
Come and go, correct.
But they're not stored in there?
Not typical.
What's the height of the building now?
It's, I think, the eave might be around 28 feet. I'm giving you that as an approximate. I'd have to pull out the architect.
Also, one other thing, sometimes I've read that DPW facilities use open air space for multiple purposes. For example, they have snow and sand storage or other things used in the winter, whatever they may be. And then that area in front has to be kept clear. But then they have a pad with a washing area or something like that. Are there any economies for doing something like that here?
I'm not sure I completely understand your question. I'm not sure if you could rephrase that for me or repeat that.
That areas that are used seasonally, like for the winter.
Yes.
Then the area in front needs to be kept clear so vehicles have access. But then that area can be used in a duplicative manner during other seasons.
So that's actually the canopy space. That canopy is typically what we call out is they'll switch out equipment that's not used that can be stored under just a three-sided structure, and then when or sander body for. And then when it's needed in the winter, it moves back in on the inside, and they'll put lawnmowers under there. So we do have a little of that built in, but I'm not sure if that answers your question. I can't think of any other potential use where you'd have that shared seasonal switch out.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And the last thing is, I would like to bring up the reason why I'm bringing up the alternatives, I'm guiding the discussion towards the alternatives, because talking about how the building is close to the setbacks and stuff really then gets you back to if there is an alternative. And so I'd rather just try to direct it to go right to alternatives for that reason. So for that same reason, I'd like to talk to you about the contamination.
Sure.
The contamination that's on the site, I actually did a little bit of research on the subject, and as you make mention, there's a Class C RAO, which essentially says monitoring is to be continued, and the last one was in 2013, and they're a little overdue for the next 5-year monitoring, and I mean, I'm familiar with all that.
Sure.
But what was interesting is that the two sources on the site, one was the I believe a heating oil tank that leaked towards near the wetland area, towards the back there, I think it was. And then there was on the east side, that was the south side, and then on the east side, there was some kind of piles of stuff from catch basins or whatever that leaked and so forth and so forth. And the reason why the LSP of record at the time said that it qualifies for a temporary solution, which is just continue monitoring, is because the contamination was very low level and was degrading, but was in various places in the soil from the heating oil, even though they noted it was attenuating. And because the facility is kept locked, that people don't have access to it. Sure. Nobody's going to eat it and come in contact with it. And then the groundwater, there was volatiles and semi-volatiles, and the last rounds, the volatiles were non-detect. The semi-volatiles were detect, but they were lower than drinking water standards, the most strict drinking water standards. And so they have, the reason why this is relevant to a couple of things. One is the alternatives, which I'm not sure that the alternatives, it would be good, but they said that if there was, they implied somewhere in here, if there was a building or a paved area over the area where there was contaminated soil, even though it was removed, it may not even be there anymore because over 25 years it's kind of gone, that it would qualify for a final solution. So in other words, this project, if the building was put over that area, wherever that was, I don't know exactly where it was, but if it was put over that area, it would actually move the site from a temporary solution to perhaps a final solution. They seem to indicate that.
So
I don't know if, and the groundwater looks like it's been pretty well cleaned up as far as the last round.
That's a great summary. And it's in line with a lot of what we're thinking. So part of this project, we're going to be excavating soils and building a new structure. So we're working with the LSP director right now, Rue Associates.
Yes. Didn't he resign?
Nope. At least the last correspondence we had.
December of 18, I think I saw a letter that the LSP of record resigned.
Oh, well, they might have transferred over someone internally because we were in touch with them as maybe a month or so ago. And, oh, is it? Yeah.
Really?
All right.
Could you get us his name, please?
And what we're doing is, because we have to do test pits and borings out here anyways, we're working to get additional information to them. That's actually in process. We've done one round already. We're going to be doing some more in the future. The goal for us is to see if we can, through our construction process, come to a final solution. And really, a lot of that can be handled with, we'll be doing soil management plans and understanding if there are any semi-volatile, volatile organic issues, and making sure we have proper barriers and things of that nature. So ultimately, we'll get our next round and work through our construction process and our design process to see if we can incorporate that final solution. There's just more data that we need to get, but as you mentioned, it's been low levels, been a lot of non-detects. There's been some other low levels that we've seen that are just above reportable standards, but nothing has been significant or a surprise to us from our testing that is inconsistent with what's been there historically.
So is there any showstopper for creating a walkway around? Because we have a plan that goes all the way from Route 62 up near Bedford, all the way down through this area, through the Vinebrook Aquifer when it's abandoned, and so forth. We have plans for a walkway throughout the whole south and western portion of the town, and it actually goes all the way up towards the Marriott. And so this is sort of like one critical path that's been on our radar screen for a long time.
So the two things that I would just throw out there for consideration, number one would be if the next round of groundwater sampling, because of the, I guess this area in general has, that is not related to this site, that has any detections, then we would not want to promote people down in that area because of potential organic compound. The other thing to just consider is, due to its location, what you're promoting is, I guess you're promoting people to walk this area that's along Public Works facility, and I would just caution you about the mixing of the public with the vehicles on that back area. It is an opportunity for people to get into the site. Granted, you can fence it, but
They do things like that, like if you walk the Minuteman or ride the Minuteman bikeway, that goes right past a lot of the DPW stuff in Bedford, and yeah, I don't think there's a big issue there.
Yeah.
And actually, in some ways, with more public walking by, you know, that just, you know, people do, that you might have actually less vandalism, that there'd be more visible.
And we actually, we did some layouts earlier, some of our earlier plans to try to show a path that would stay out of the top bank area. And it's tight. It would be tough to get down there. I'm not sure about what your thoughts were, whether this would be a structured system or just a natural path. A structured system will likely impact floodplain because the floodplain is essentially right at the bottom of that slope.
Yeah, I was thinking more of a natural path. Yeah, but could you take a look at that and flesh that out a little bit more?
Yeah.
For us? Mr. Sanchez knows that we have had this on our radar screen for a very long time.
So I may, Mr. Chairman, we actually have talked a lot internally about that. And there's a couple of things that really worried us, and maybe, can you put option 3 back in there?
We get the better plan.
So when we look at this facility from end to end, including the canopy area, it's well over 300 feet. And when you get behind the building, it's pretty much a steep embankment. A lot of weed vegetation in there, but we're putting people behind the building where nobody's know they're there. Very lengthy area. And we have concerns about that as well as people walk in what is really an operating facility. Internally, we had talked about that perhaps a better option for reaching the same outcome as far as connecting sites is to actually provide access through a sidewalk to the parking area where we can have the same effect of wetlands. And actually, so what I think, and I don't know, Commissioner Burwash, think is a much better area that that would actually be behind the current facility. Some of, I don't know if you've actually walked that area. I've been on the facility working for years, but behind the building is not really a pristine environment per se. Behind our building, all you see is the commercial property right behind it as well. So we thought that that could be an alternative. So it's not an issue of that we don't want to do something, an issue of like what may be better. And again, internally, that's what we have talked about, perhaps doing that and providing that green area, and as well as the parking for people to use that area of ours. Are we talking about putting a picnic table there or bench, et cetera?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on where we end up for the site configuration. If the site configuration is tight, then that, and behind there, then perhaps your comments are well taken. If the site configuration were enabled to be changed so there was more space behind the building, that might give rise to a different interpretation.
But that's what we have. So,
okay.
I just wanted.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
So while you're on the contamination issue, so did the LSP say no infiltration?
Yes, that's another issue.
We spoke to
did Rue say that?
We spoke to our LSP because ultimately, if we move to a permanent closure, we would likely have to do it as part of our contract. We spoke to our LSP that would be who's been working with on SAM. They confirmed that.
Confirmed what?
That we should not go with the infiltration route.
I'm not sure it makes sense based on the summary I saw of what of the history of the site, and if there's no volatiles, if there is I don't know if the second round will see this, but if there's non-detective volatiles and the semi-volatiles below, the few that they hit, the few detections they hit were below groundwater 1 standards. And the initial heating oil soil, which over 25 years is probably very degraded, and I don't think they're even concerned about it anymore. I'm not sure why infiltration would not be allowed if the results are looked at critically.
So I know we did have some attacks above limit, above reportable limits in our last round. So based on that review, and again, we're doing additional testing, but again, low levels, not significant, very historic data. If it was determined that we could infiltrate, if we found in these particular areas through our next round that there is nothing to be concerned about, the system's in place. Right now, it's just lined. We could simply remove the lining. We would have our 44% TSS removal prior to infiltration, and then we could infiltrate. So that wouldn't be a hard change, and we can adjust that as we get more data.
And as far as down gradient, we are not up gradient of contamination. We are at almost the point of discharge. And so I think we would love to, because infiltration is important to the commission, I think we would love to have a chat with the LSP on that subject.
Yeah, so I think as we get through this next round, fairly quickly, if we find that there's nothing to be concerned about, we can present that information back to you.
And so in other words, as far as you folks are concerned, if we can get to a place where we're comfortable with infiltration, that's an easy switch.
Oh yeah, it's a change one detail on the drawing, adjust the HydroCAD. It would only improve the situation on our stormwater. We're already in compliance without it, so it would just be a win-win if we find the materials are okay for infiltration.
That would be great if we could work towards that goal if possible.
So, I mean, you did 13 test pits, so you're fairly confident you could do infiltration if there were no contamination issues, correct?
Shallow groundwater there.
So that would be our challenge. Yeah, sorry, I know he doesn't have the mic. There is shallow groundwater.
Okay.
And having separation and/or doing the mounding calcs would be something that we would do as part of that to determine if we could do that.
All right, the commission, any comments further on the contamination or alternatives?
No, I guess just in terms of your construction, that, you know, if you find that there is some detectable contamination in the soil, then I assume as you're excavating, you're going to be testing soil, and that will be taken away off-site?
Correct. Yep, we already have started our specification soil management plan that would involve that.
All right, so John, with respect to compliance with the regulations, no adverse impact. And
Okay, so one thing that hasn't really been discussed, so the brook there is mapped habitat for the bridal shiner, which is a state-listed species. So the work, the footprint obviously isn't in the habitat because it's a fish and they're not building over the brook. But there are two new stormwater discharges that will feed into the brook. So they have filed with the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, and they'll be evaluating and giving us comments. So the performance standard for no significant impacts. So basically, the proposal is to increase pervious area in the riverfront by 2,000, was it 2,000 square feet?
The net is a decrease of 2,100 square feet.
Right, so 2,100 square feet of new pervious area. So I would say that they meet that standard.
So we do meet that standard. And the regulation says also that the proposed work, including expansion of existing structures, shall be located outside the riverfront area or towards the riverfront area boundary away from the river.
Right, and they don't meet that standard, you would need to issue a waiver for that.
Have to have a waiver for that. And it also says, when an applicant proposes restoration of on-site degraded riverfront area, alteration may be allowed with a 1-to-1 ratio of restored area to area of alteration not conforming to criteria.
Right, so this isn't that type of project. This isn't a restoration project.
All right, so that doesn't apply.
Correct.
So you don't need a waiver of that. All right, and the last thing on this is then the commission's heard this before, but our bylaw requires some conditions to grant a waiver. What is that? Let's see if we have that. Okay, what it says is the justification that we need, I'll do this from memory because I can't find anything now, is that the justification for granting a waiver is avoidance. You have to somehow clearly state that you have minimized the area of intrusion that the waiver is being requested for, which would be the 50-foot no build, and that there is some overriding public interest, that we have interpreted that to mean as a benefit to the natural resources, that something about the natural resources is being enhanced. And in order for us to, what we have done is we've had applicants go through and articulate that, and they have proposed certain things, like, for example, when John and Eileen have gone into the wetlands and looked at the flags, they see opportunities where something could be done to improve the quality of that wetland, and that is the applicant then joyfully offers that, so they won't get their waiver. So I think some attempt at looking that up under our bylaw and then providing that justification would give us the information we need in order to vote yes on the waiver.
Okay, I think that's pretty straightforward. We can put that together. Thank you.
All right, should we move on to the next subject?
Yes, and I will talk even faster this time.
All right.
If that'll help you guys.
All right. I'm sorry this took so long. Yes.
Can I just ask one question? Sure. In your final analysis of things that would be an improvement, you noted that you were going to clean up existing trash, and the area around there is disgusting.
Yes.
Like, really gross. Yeah. My son, who's in the back, can attest that we walk around there sometimes, not behind the DPW building, but on the other side, and there's so much litter that even if you bring several bags with you, you could fill them. So I was curious as to when that would start, when you guys are going to start cleaning up that area, and if there's going to be something in the final plan that will include regular maintenance of cleaning up that litter. It's bad. So I don't know. May not be in the scope of what we were just discussing, but important to me, so I'll mention
it was a polite ask.
For what it's worth, I mentioned I've done 120 of these, and I've seen some horrible sights. Yeah. And after I built them, I've gone back years and years and years later, and they look phenomenal. They look brand new. So it's amazing what a new facility will do with the right facilities. I think we'll work with DPW to begin the process of cleaning it up because we need to get the sites ready for construction. So I think that you'll see that happening slowly at first. Once a contractor's on board, it'll be immediately, you'll see instant. We'll have to monitor them during construction, which we always do. But I think that you'll see tremendous improvement. What I've seen, it's amazing what
I just have a couple of quick things.
Please, yes.
So I'd also like you to think a little creatively about these storage sites for the outdoor storage of, mulch and whatever it happens to be. I don't know if there is any way that you can put I know they have to get trucks in there, probably front loaders and stuff like that, but any type of high canopy or something, or, have those walls between them, something, or maybe at the very end, something come out as a barrier, because think about like that heavy rain we got today, we got Sunday. I mean, it doesn't matter which way they're sloped. If you get a heavy rain, that stuff's just going to wash out of there, wash into the pavement. If it's a weekend when no one's there, it's going to end up going down into the drainage and just create a mess. And because it's such an important area in terms of resource area, it would be nice to have that stuff, extra something, even at the very end, like something that would kind of block any stuff from coming out.
I'm sure we could come up with something that able to address that.
And so, Larry, do you want to save like details for the next one because it's going to
be
more?
I wanted to go on. I wanted to go on because we spent so much time on this. This was the more, I think if there's any comments that people have, they can pass it to the office and they'll get them. If there are any, they'll pass them on to you folks.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Did you want to ask if there's anybody in the audience?
Yes, is there anybody in the audience for this that wants to comment on this? I neglected to ask as part of the hearing.
I think I heard they're all in favor.
All right. Okay.
Let me talk about.
Let me just read the notice for anybody who's watching. The next item on the agenda is, again, a public hearing. It is for DPW, and it's for the demolition of the existing structure that is at 10 Great Meadow Road. It was known as the Clark and Reed Company site. This is a notice of intent to demolish the building and build a Parks and Recreation maintenance and DPW maintenance facility. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and the application materials available in the Conservation Office for any public review. Okay, so I'm assuming, I sense this will be an easier site for us, so we may not take, hopefully it won't take us so long.
Okay. Thank you. Same process, but you're right, this should go much quicker. This is is 10 Great Meadow Road, and I've the new site location, which is just down the road. I've made the site we just talked about more screened. If you zoom back in, you can see that site is previously developed, was used for Clark and Reed in the town. They're currently using that facility. This is the survey of the site, and this consists currently of a plus or minus 12,000 square foot existing building with a canopy, 3,500 square foot building located in the bottom corner, and then this shows the limit of disturbance and travel surface that exists there today. So what we have for resource areas and setbacks, we have the bordering vegetated wetland to the north. North is to the right on this plan, and we have a 100-foot buffer. We also have in the bottom left a small piece here, and the buffer just extends in. Here's your 20-foot no disturb. I did not show it over here because it's off-site, but this is 20-foot no disturb that we're making sure we take into consideration as we design. There's also a 100-year floodplain just on the far north of the site. We're not impacting at all as part of the proposed development. If you're looking at the building that exists there today, again, it's an old masonry type building. The site is primarily paved. You can see from these photographs, nothing too exciting and interesting. We've determined that the building does not really provide any great value, and this is where maintenance operations will take place in the corner of the site, very where that buffer is currently. So we also looked at the stormwater here, similar to the other site. It's untreated sheet flow stormwater runoff, generally in a from the upper left to the bottom right of the screen. And this is some photographs on a sunny day where you can see these large paved areas and really no curb treatment around the perimeter of the site, so it's sheet runoff. Again, we went out during a storm event, and this shows you that sheet runoff coming over, piling up, and then untreated right off the site. So again, with this facility where we'll be curbing, we will have treatment for this runoff so that you no longer have that site. So the proposed development is to take those existing structures, which again don't have any value to the proposed operations, take the existing pavement travel surfaces, remove those, create a clean slate. From there, we have a proposed facility that's centrally located, a very efficient facility. This building, and as you can see there, the setbacks that we talked about earlier. If you take a closer look at this building, zooming in on it, it's very similar to what we looked at before. We have several main components. The top area represents vehicle and equipment storage for parks and recreation. These darker areas here represent the employee and office support space. And then these yellow areas represent some shop space, as well as the vehicle maintenance operation. And then all the way on the end here is the vehicle wash bay. What's great about the vehicle wash bay is this is an enclosed space, and you'll find in older facilities they just don't have this space, and that's done outdoors, but this will be all washed indoors. Everything will be collected in a trench drain and a deep sump. That moves to an oil grit separator that then discharges to the sewer system. So no discharge from this vehicle washing operation to stormwater. As you look at the stormwater system, similar to the other site, we have deep sump-footed catch basins, water quality structures, and in this case, we have underground infiltration chambers with isolation row. Because we don't have contamination issues on this site, we are moving forward with filtration. We do have on the exterior of the building what's referred to as a knockdown pad. This is generally a concrete pad that has a catch basin that goes through a water quality structure and then ultimately through the underground chambers. This is not pressure washing, this is not soap washing, this is just a high volume, like an inch and a half hose that they can get larger debris off quick. Allowed by DEP, it's kind of referred to as dust water rinsing, and it's permitted under what's called the UIC program. So something that we do typically on most facilities. What that does is it prevents the wash bay from getting clogged up with leaves and grass, things of that nature, which then ultimately cause problems with water getting out into stormwater. On the site, we're meeting the TS removal, 80% TSS removal through, again, deep sump-footed catch basins, water quality structures in the underground infiltration chambers with the isolation row. This shows you the calculations on the northwest side. Similarly, on the northeast side, we've done that as well. We've met the peak rate attenuation. Our post-developments do not exceed our pre-development, so that's great. And the summary of improvements, we eliminate that untreated stormwater runoff that I showed you earlier. We will have a fully curbed site so that if any sheet flow off the site will be collected to our system. Provides the building to store that equipment undercover, similar to the other site. That will ensure that anything comes off the vehicles stored goes into the sewer system, not the stormwater system. And then we have our new stormwater system. Yes. As I said, we'll go a little bit faster because I know you've been here for a while. Hopefully I covered all the points. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. John or Eileen, do you have comments on this one?
Well, clearly this one's a lot easier. It's just buffer zone. It meets your setbacks for no build and no disturb. There's infiltration, so the stormwater management meets the stormwater regulations. This, like the other project, is redevelopment. They're both redevelopment projects, but this one meets the DEP stormwater standards. I do have a question on the north side about, so the overflow from the infiltrator, the stone basin seems really large. And so that whole area, is that currently wooded? Are you going into the woods on the north side there?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a reason that overflow from that infiltrators is so large, and can that slope be reduced to reduce the impact into the woods?
We can look at that. We can see if we can pull this back. I think a lot has to do with the inverts. Our challenge is that we're bringing in stormwater from the front of the site, the left side of the site, the back, and we can't discharge out on this side primarily because we'd be off the property. We're on line there. So I think this is being driven by those slopes. But let us take a look and see if we can minimize some of those slopes and bring that further back into the left of the site and maybe into that slope and reduce that filling basin.
That's the only thing I really noticed.
All right. Let me start at the right. Do you have any comments, Jennifer, on this at all?
No, I would just ask, and it's something that we talked about previously at other meetings, like that, if you guys could try to use like minimal impact design when you're
Looking at what?
Say again?
I didn't hear what you said.
I would like them to consider using like minimal impact design.
Low impact.
Low impact design, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Ed, what do you think about this one? Anything?
Just need more detail. Yes, on
Okay, you can always go back to it anyway. Things occur. John, anything on this?
No.
No.
The building itself, is it going to be energy efficient, meet the new green community standards and stuff like that?
Yes. We incorporated all that into it already.
Just one curiosity, where's the dog pound nowadays? Is it still at the existing site? And where is it going to be after all of this?
Dog pound is currently at 1 Great Meadow Road, and our plan is to relocate it, part of this project, a separate project rather, relocate it across the street. We have our, what we call the main water facility, because the water facility is going to move into the new facility at 1 Great Meadow Road, so they give us an opportunity to model one of those buildings too. So,
that's to the left of the employee parking?
Correct.
Right there, okay. Thanks, I'm just curious.
All right, Gail.
So, how many people work at this facility? I mean, kind of on a daily, it would be residential there, that not...
How many people?
How many people would be working in the facility, not, kind of driving a truck there and coming back, but just actually working at the facility?
It's approximately 30.
Okay, and how many parking spaces are there here?
We probably have 35, somewhere in that range.
Anything else?
So I just have one thing before we have to get, and nothing to do with this. So I thought your report was really thorough, but I know that you'll be giving us some more stuff for the next round. Could you make sure that everybody double-sides their copies? There was a lot of paper, a lot of single-sided paper.
I was carrying mine and dropped it a couple times.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Indra, any comments?
What's the area of the building, this new building, the area?
That is right here. It's about 28,400 square feet.
So, regarding the impervious area, the impervious area, are you increasing or decreasing?
We are. We're increasing the impervious area.
How much?
So this is 6,300 square feet now that's in the buffer. Are you talking about overall site? Oh, actually, I don't know overall site. Do you know, Zach, here? Look that up, too.
Okay. All right.
If we don't get you the answer in the next few minutes, we'll include a response with our package that will list the, yeah, for both sides. Huh?
I do have one question. The site now a dumping site. Does that go away?
I'm sorry?
A lot of dumping that goes on there. Does that go away at this
I think
site?
he's referring to the catch basin cleaning.
Street sweeping.
Oh, street sweepings.
So where will that stuff get dumped?
So, as part of the operation that we do, catch basin cleaning, sweepings, actual slush from the lagoons and mill pond as well, those go to one facility before we bring them to a landfill.
And so where are they stored? Are they stored in any of these?
Well, right, at this particular time, we're storing them at Clark and Reed.
Right.
This is the easiest.
But in the future?
They will have to go back to one Gray Meadow Road.
So is there a location where that?
There's a very small area in the middle. If you look at that lot on the one Meadow Road facility, so what will probably have to happen is we'll have to dispose of it quicker than what we currently do to be able to utilize the space we have.
So where?
So between somewhere outside.
So that will need some detail, and because that there's contaminants in that stuff, that especially street sweepings and things, and how that's going to be contained. And maybe even like in the O&M plan, detail about how long it will stay there, before it's removed, that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. I actually don't have any comments on this. It's a substantial improvement over the kind of stormwater treatment we have there now. So is there anyone in the audience for this one? 10 Meadow Road or Great Meadow Road?
There are just some minor things, and I think, because I didn't, we just got that tonight, but I think I saw something maybe in the email or something, that you have changed the erosion plan, right, from the compost filter tubes to hay bales and silt fences, and, right, that's been changed, yeah. And then I think you just used a boilerplate probably for the, your kind of landscape and stuff like that. So there should not be any fertilizer used, because it said something about fertilizer, there should not be any fertilizers used, especially at that first site. And it also talked about sand and salt. No, that shouldn't happen either.
Boilerplates back.
Yeah, in the back, I think it's in the, it's in the other one, but it's,
I'll do a search through it.
Yeah.
I'll find it. We'll get that corrected. So
there was, I can actually find it, I marked it off. It was, I don't know, it's in here somewhere. And there's also some stuff about sweeping the site, so the parking lot would be, it was kind of confusing to me, swept on a monthly average, primarily in the spring and fall. That's not, so does that mean like in the wintertime when they're tracking in stuff and whatnot, there's not going to be any, sweeping done? And I don't know, I think that first site especially is such an important site that it needs to be spelled out and to be, more frequently cleaned.
Okay.
And, while I'm at it here, so the thing about, so it was in the O and M about the fertilizer and the
You're
salt.
talking about 1 to 3?
Yes. yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right, I just wanted
Yeah,
to know.
and then, and I don't know if this is implied, but it's certainly not stated, that there's something in here about if there's some type of spill or contamination, that all kinds of people are notified, but there's no listing of conservation or health department. There's like fire, police, but, anyways, there are a few other things we'll get back to later.
And
I'll go on.
since we're doing the last minute details on 1 to 3 Meadow Road, is there an isolator row on the detention chambers on the right-hand side? At 1 to 3, on the east side?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see it marked on the plan. I thought it was marked on one detention chamber, not on the other.
We'll confirm that, but the intent is that both will have it.
Both have it?
Yeah.
And there is a way to clean them out if they're full, right?
Correct.
And there's an observation port on them?
Correct.
As well? Okay.
I'm saying yes, but
They were nodding behind you. I actually wasn't paying attention to you, I was paying attention to him. Okay, and, one last thing, is on the plan, it also said there's, in the southeast corner, there's some removal of trees. I forgot to go over and look at them. I'm wondering whether those trees are providing important shade for a habitat at that point.
Which site are you talking about?
On
Which
1 to
site?
3
Oh.
Great Meadow Road, in the southeast corner of the drawing, it says something removal of trees, in which case,
That's near the dog pound?
the question is, should there be some replanting somewhere to provide shade if that's what they're providing, which is important for habitat?
Especially that habitat with the
Right.
species of,
Is that the area near the dog pound, behind the dog pound?
No,
So where is it? Southeast?
it's in the far right, bottom right.
Down in this,
Yeah, there was something that said removal of trees at that location? Or am I confused?
oh, it's for the outfall. Yeah, it's probably in this corner right here.
Right, so I meant to look at it to see if it was important for providing the shade that habitat needs.
Do you want us to, we're going to be actually doing some more sidewalks. Do you want us to evaluate that? We can photograph it.
I
and
would
then come back to
appreciate
you.
that. I'd appreciate an opinion on that,
Yeah.
but that's the concern. And if there's an opportunity to plant trees in the green area being restored, that would be,
exactly. There's no mention of landscaping on either of these plans, really. Mention of planting a single tree on either site. So, I'd like to see as much of that as possible.
Yeah,
Especially on the number 10 site, there's more space for that.
Yeah, we have a whole landscape plan that we're going with the planning board. We'll include
They're all
that in our
native
next
plants.
submission.
All
What's that?
native plants.
They should be.
Yeah.
If they're not, they will be.
all right. I think we're all set for, that's probably enough for one night.
Oh, I still got another.
Well, I am told planning board goes a lot longer. This was a very good presentation. Thank you for all the effort you put into doing this kind of a presentation.
Very clear. Thank you, and I appreciate all the input, the DCM, all that process. I really appreciate that you guys have that down. That really makes our lives easier, so thank you. Well,
All right, very good. All right, so the next the meeting is August 8th. And perhaps you'll give us a summary of a lot of these things at that time and begin to wrap things up maybe at some point.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you all.
By 10,
Because
I
we
said
were
9:15.
early for the 7:15.
So can I go to adjourn?
Yes.
All right. I'm told that we are now at adjournment. Could I, because we did all the administration stuff.
Oh, okay.
Is there any other business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting,
Hold on,
please?
someone wants to finish his book, we should probably wait.
So moved.
All in favor?
You.
Okay.
You.
So,
Good evening.
I'll just